Good morning. Thank you everyone so much for coming. Today we are at our December 10th committee meeting. We appreciate all of you taking the time to be with us. We just ask you to start the meeting if you could make sure your cell phones are on silent. When you come up to speak today, please try to have a speaker form filled out ahead of time, and if anybody needs to use the restroom during the break, they'll just go out these doors and turn left. We're going to start the meeting with a prayer from, we've got Pastor Mike Brown here with West Florida Baptist Church, so if you'll rise and join us in a word of prayer.
Okay, let's pray. Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for your goodness and your blessings that are all around our lives every single day. Thank you for the privilege it is to live in Santa Rosa County. Lord, this is a wonderful place to live. I'm thankful for all the God-fearing leaders that you've given to us, for the churches and the people that still have a healthy respect for you and a desire to please you in our lives. I pray that you'd guide and direct this meeting today. I pray that you'd give wisdom to our leaders and the decisions that they make, and I pray that you just bless all that's said and done. Thank you also for this time of year, Lord, that we set aside to remember the birth of your Son, Jesus Christ, and thank you for the great gift of salvation that you've given to us. And Lord, we are blessed to be your children. Bless all that's said and done today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. I've asked my friend and our sheriff, Bob Johnson, to lead us in the pledge today.
Please join me in the pledge to the flag of our great nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's start out to my right. Just ask any of the commissioners if you have any add-ons or changes to the agenda.
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. No changes.
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
No changes, Mr. Chairman. So I do have 3 items that I would request we add to the admin agenda. The first one is a personnel request. I would like to discuss adding 1 additional staff billet this fiscal year, and I'll talk to you about that. Second is to seek approval from the board to advertise for a revised golf cart ordinance for the Tiger Point area. And then the last one, we received a Career Source Rosa board appointment nomination. Emily has distributed those. They're on your desk there. I would ask that we add that to the end of the admin agenda.
Thank you, Dan. We'll make those items 18, 19, and 20.
No changes.
Not seeing any. Roger, Stephen, Jason, thank you for being here today. All right, with that, just a point of order, we'll have several public hearings. You'll see there on the agenda, there's 6 listed on Thursday. You can read those off the agenda. That meeting will be held here, and those will be at 9:30 a.m. Also, we'll be having a presentation that day by Chuck Branch, as well as some special recognitions for a retirement. Okay. First, it's my honor, the first day as chairman, to get to recognize such a special young man, a member of our community. I believe Ashton Buechler. Ashton, are you here? If you will, come on up. You can bring, I don't know if your mom and dad were able to be here, or any member of the staff that want to come from the school. So as Ashton comes up, he's a senior, right? Senior at West Florida Baptist Academy, which happens to be in my district. Members of principals and members of staff had reached out to me and told me about this incident, which I'd been aware of but didn't know the young man involved. And back on November 20th, I believe it was, of this year, he was in his vehicle waiting to pick up his younger brother to get released from school, and he saw a gentleman breaking into vehicles, and I believe the fellow may have had or either a weapon, or whether it was a real gun or toy gun or something, but it motioned for you, just to be quiet and go away. But they said that the first thing you thought about were all the other kids in the school, and immediately went and told the office. They went in the lockdown. The sheriff's office responded, was able to capture this person and bring him to justice. And And it was very clear, and it was conveyed to me, not only through staff, but also even through the sheriff, that that wouldn't have been possible without your actions. And so we wanted to recognize you, because it takes courage sometimes to put others before yourself. And that gives us confidence to know, with future generations coming up, there are still those people that will put others before themselves. And your school wanted you to know just how special that was to them. And I think it's a testament to, your parents and what they've instilled, as well as the school and the values they've instilled with you. And this board wanted to take a moment out of our time to recognize you and tell you how appreciative you were, or we were, of you. And so with that, if we have any other comments from the board, I know the sheriff had mentioned coming up to say a word, and then we'll have your staff speak, and the principal's here today, I believe. So.
Well, thank you, Chairman. I appreciate the, I just want to tell Ashton that when you turn 19, we are hiring, we have openings, and we'd love to have you as a deputy sheriff. But he did the correct thing, because we don't condone people trying to, take law into their own hands and put yourselves in jeopardy. That's what we're here for. So he did the exact right thing. He called us, waited for us to get there, pointed him out, and we got to arrest the guy. So citizens like Ashton, you make our job easy, and we really do appreciate it. And for the parents over there, you raised a great kid, and we really do appreciate the assistance. So thank you very much.
Ashton, the floor is yours if you'd like to say anything, and if not, I totally understand. I still get nervous every time I come up here. So if anybody from the school had anything to say, now would be the time. And
I'm Linda Bacon. I'm the principal, and when I heard and saw what he had done and was told, I just felt like that young men like this, for what he did, he could have just either sat there, or he could have left campus just to get away. I know it scared him to death, but he said the only thing he could think about was coming and making sure the other kids were all right. And he certainly made some ruts in the grass to get away from what was going on there, and came back in his car to the school and let us know. And of course, then we went on lockdown. But we certainly are proud of him for what he did.
well, thank you. And again, I don't think we could commend your mom and dad enough for raising such a fine young man. So I think we're going to come down there and we'll get a photo, and this board had something we wanted to give you.
Back up and switch it. Let's make sure everybody can be seen.
All right, we're going to move on to the Administrative Committee. Item number 1 is discussion of committee assignments and individual agency representative appointments. Somebody have any questions or concerns? Hearing none, I would move those to the consent agenda for Thursday without objection. Item number 2 is a discussion of a few changes, just from watching over the past couple of years, and I know we've unfortunately had quite a few citizens that have informed me after meetings that they had come, and due to the lengthy nature of some of them that have become a little too frequent of running these meetings into 2, 3, 4 in the afternoon. A lot of citizens had came to speak to us about whether it be an issue on the agenda or something that wasn't on the agenda, and just unfortunately, a lot of folks can't take off and be here, from the morning well until after the lunchtime. And so to try to better mitigate that so that every citizen gets an opportunity to speak on issues and we get to hear from them, listed here were a few things, and I had really wanted to have this discussion with the commissioners this morning just to see if you had any other input or we're okay with these or some concerns, and these are some things I would like to try to implement moving forward.
So just one of the things we discussed on the public forum to the beginning of the meeting was perhaps doing that on Monday only, because the Monday committee meeting is when we have a lot more discussion, and perhaps starting the meeting on Monday at 8:30 in the morning, and have that first item be public forum on Monday only. On Thursday, we would still start at 9, and we would leave public forum at the end. I didn't know if that was one amplification we had discussed.
Any other commissioners have any suggestions or ideas or heartburn with any of this? I will say Clerk Don Spencer wished he could have been here. He said he was out of town, but he called me to convey he thought this would be very good and efficient, especially for not only the citizens, but even he had mentioned when he has staff come, and sometimes it's hard to regulate how long the meetings were. He had one suggestion of under the 3-minute time limit. That is per speaker, not item. And again, it's just so that, sometimes we have folks come up here and it actually said it on the speaker form, I believe, for a little over a year. We've just never tried to stick to that, but he had mentioned maybe even having a 2-minute rebuttal time so that we're not saying you can't come back up and speak. But again, it's if you follow our meetings over the last few years, sometimes you have folks and they'll come up and 4 or 5 times in a meeting. And again, it's unfair to other citizens that want to speak. So, and I would like to add prayer and pledge actually to the agenda for Monday's committee meetings. But if Commissioner Salter.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with everything you just said. One thing I'd like for us to consider is taking economic development and moving it up before the administrative committee. We did that in the past. A couple of years ago, we changed it for whatever reason. We don't need our economic development person sitting here for 2 or 3 hours when he could be out creating jobs. So I'd like for us to consider that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I appreciate the wisdom that you bring to the board. I would definitely not argue that when you've got 18 years experience up here. I think that's a good man to listen to. Anyone else? All right, hearing nothing else, I would just ask Dan if you could make those changes and reflect them onto Thursday's consent agenda. Thank you. We'll move on to item number 3. Dan, take it away.
Item number 3 is just the annual calendar, just trying to get the dates set and approved. What we have done the last couple years is only had 1 set of meetings in March, 1 set of meetings in June, and then 1 set in November and December with the holidays. What I would propose, and I know this means more work for me, but is that we just have 2 sets of meetings in March and stick with the 1 set in June, November, and December. Just having 1 set of meetings a month, you can see the agenda gets very robust. And I don't think we will have a problem maintaining a quorum or getting a quorum for that March meeting, and it allows us to continue doing business and still leaves June, which is when the FAC annual conference is. Many of you attend that, as well as the holidays, November, December. So that would be my recommendation is single sets of meetings in June, November, December.
Members of the board, Commissioner
Mr.
Lynch.
Chairman, I agree with Dan. This year, the reason that we only did 1 set of meetings in March was because spring break the last few years has conflicted with our 2nd set of meetings, the Santa Rosa County School District spring break. This year, Our our second set of meetings in March will be the week after spring break, so none of us should have a conflict with that.
Thank you. Dan will follow your recommendation and move that to Thursday's consent agenda. Item number 4 is a meeting change date concerning our January 21st committee meeting that would normally be on a Monday, but we have the great day of Martin Luther King's holiday, and so the staff has requested we move that meeting to Tuesday, the 22nd. We have it listed here at 9 a.m., but if we implement those changes, I believe it would actually be at 8:30. But do any members of the board have a problem with that? It is. Hearing none, Dan, we'll take your recommendation if you'll just reflect those changes on the consent agenda, please. Item number 5 are some event requests. Discussion of approval of the following events. One is the Tinker Garden Incorporated request to utilize the grassy area of Patriot and Benny Russell Parks for outdoor nature play classes from January to April. I believe they've done this before. It's outlined there in the application. We've also got the weekend food program in Navarre, request to utilize Gulf Boulevard and White Sands Boulevard for a 5K race, as well as a portion of the public parking areas as identified in the application. That'll be on April 27th. 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. I don't know if they did 5 hours, thinking if I went to the 5K, it would take me like an hour per kilometer there. But anyway, and item number 3 is National Kidney Foundation of Florida's request to utilize the walking path on Navarre Beach for their annual kidney walk scheduled for April 6th, and that'll be 7:30 a.m. to noon. If no members of the board have a problem, I would suggest we move those to Thursday's consent agenda. Item number 6 is surplus property items. It's a discussion of declaration of surplus property items from Santa Rosa County Health Department and the Property Appraiser's Office. It's been recommended by the Clerk of Courts, and it's there in your backup. Recommend moving those to Thursday's consent agenda. Number 7 is a memorandum of agreement with the Navarre Beach Fire Department. Dan, if you'll fill us in on this.
Yes, so this is one we had on the agenda last month. We pulled it off to resolve a few minor things. The Navarre Beach Fire Department Chief is here if you have any questions, but this will transfer the lifeguard water safety program to under Navarre Beach Fire. The memorandum of agreement outlines the terms. The county will reimburse or pay monthly, and the Navarre Beach Fire Department will provide quarterly reports, and they'll assume the responsibilities for that lifeguard program starting next season in March.
Thank you, Dan. And Chief, we appreciate what you do for us out there. I know, obviously, you have probably the most support I've ever seen of your stakeholders from your citizens that'll come up here and go to war for you, and we appreciate you taking this over. I think it's fitting. It's no extra money for the county, so thank you for what you do. And we'll move that MOU to Thursday's consent agenda. Number 8 deals with the courthouse proposals. Dan, I'm going to let you address this one.
Yes, sir. This has been a long time coming, a development that we started back in the spring when the board provided direction to pursue a design-build team. We developed an RFQ over the summer, released that late summer, and we received 6 proposals on November 8th. I assigned an evaluation committee of 7 members that reviewed those 6 proposals based upon the criteria that were included in the RFQ. The selection is based upon qualifications, experience, project approach, programming, and I think we had a very robust discussion with our evaluation committee. We had 3 different evaluation committee meetings. I provided you all updates sort of throughout the process, how we were approaching it and how the discussion was going. The final ordinal ranking is included in the backup for the 7 members of the evaluation committee that participated. I also want to point out we did have some advice, an outside advisor come. Jason Autry is the Public Works Director in Okaloosa County, they've just built a courthouse. He provided us his insight on sort of the selection criteria and how they approached it, lessons he's learned, and I think that was very valuable for myself, but also for the evaluation committee members to hear that discussion. In the final ordinal ranking, we recommend a short list of 3 out of the 6 proposals. Those shortlisted firms are Whitesell Green, Ajax and Sam Marshall, and Moret Bay Design, and DLR Group are the three shortlisted firms. If the board approves the staff recommendation, we would schedule those interviews for the 8th of January.
Thank you, Dan. Any members of the board have any comments on this item? Any members of the public have comments on this item? Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The other day when I read this back up, I was kind of concerned with the process, and I voiced that in an email, which of course our emails are public record, to members of the panel that made the selection of the short list. The county administrator and myself had I would call a lengthy discussion this morning on how they set up that criteria, what all they went through, and how they made their selection. So since my email earlier was public record, I want it on public record that I feel comfortable in the selection that they did now. I've sent the county administrator an email to such, but I wanted to make sure that was on record. So I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, Commissioner Cole. Anybody else? Hearing none, I would recommend without objection that we move staff's recommendation for approval of the short list to Thursday's consent agenda. And I want to take a moment to thank not only Dan and staff that worked on this review committee. We had folks from not only Santa Rosa County, but also outside agencies. And I want a true heartfelt thank you on behalf of the entire Board of County Commissioners for those companies that put the time and energy into submitting for this that didn't make the short list cut. But we do appreciate it, and without that, I don't feel like we would have that competitive nature. So thank you. We'll move that to Thursday's consent agenda. Number 9 is a donation of a conservation easement. It's discussion of acceptance of a donation of a conservation easement from the UIL Family Limited Partnership. Information's in your backup if you have any questions. I know Roy would be glad to answer them. He's worked on this. Roy, do you want to speak for just a moment?
This is a continuation of our efforts to minimize encroachment on Whiting Field. UIL, Mr. Henry, has agreed to donate a conservation easement that incorporates within it the requirements of Whiting Field for preservation of their mission. We ultimately will be transferring this, or intend to ultimately transfer this to the Navy. We're not able to get that done by the end of the year, which is necessary for tax purposes.
Thank you, Roy. And I think a lot of this goes to attribute not only this board. I'll give Commissioner Salter credit. This helps lead into the Navy model, which I believe is the standard for around the country. It's kind of funny that's been led by an Army guy, but that's okay. We're in good hands after Saturday. So now we've got Air Force up here, so you never know what kind of collusion we'll get. But I'd recommend we move that to Thursday's consent agenda. Number 10 is a Foxboro discussion of request for Foxboro POA for traffic enforcement. We've got this similar with many neighborhoods throughout the county where if you've got a private neighborhood, private road that the county doesn't maintain, but you want to have the sheriff be able to patrol it, you've got to have this agreement in there allowing him to do that. So it's in the backup. If no members have any comments, I'd recommend moving that to Thursday's consent agenda. Number 11 is the LocalGovU training agreement. It's a discussion of approval of an agreement with LocalGovU for employee online training, and this is part of the commitment that our county administrator made when he took over to try to help further facilitate the training and advancement that we have for our employees. So if there's no discussion, I'd recommend moving that to Thursday's consent agenda. Number 12, we have the Panhandle Butterfly House, and thank you all so much for coming out this morning. Dan, I'll allow you to take this away for us.
Yes, sir. We discussed this last month, and there were some additional questions and information that the board asked for. The members of the Panhandle Butterfly House Executive Committee provided an updated business plan last week to the board, and then late last week they provided an additional option that they would like to consider, which is to find an alternate site. They, what was expressed to me expressed to you all and to me in that email and then in a subsequent meeting was that they understand they need the size of a facility that they've talked about, and that size facility in Navarre Park is rather expensive, $942,000 approximately, and that they would like the opportunity to explore some other options along 98 in the south end of the county. And so I think the recommendation here is to finalize Navarre Park construction plans, that we would not complete any architectural plans or building plans for a facility in Navarre Park, that we would leave that space vacant as green space in Navarre Park, and then continue to work with the Panhandle Butterfly House as they explore this new third option. Now, I know they had a meeting Friday. I know several folks are here. The president and their program advisors are here. They maybe would like to speak. And Mr. Bill Anderson from Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge is also here. I would just like to take a minute and summarize it. I don't know if I'm going to be on the clock, but it's been a long process. We started this a year ago. The board provided direction after a review by the TDC to coordinate with Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge and the Panhandle Butterfly House. We had several meetings, lots of good discussions, and I think a productive solution was put together, which then subsequently fell apart. This has played out in different ways in social media and in the press than it has in actuality, from where I sit anyway. And so I wanted to provide the opportunity for both sides just to make some comments, but really, unless something changed between Thursday and Friday, I think the decision for the board today is pretty straightforward, and that's to move ahead with Navarre Park, to not pay for the design of any facility or buildings in Navarre Park, and then to continue to work to a solution, probably with both entities, the Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge and the Panhandle Butterfly House. But I know Mr. Anderson has some prepared remarks. I'm sure Louise or Miriam or Kevin, I'm not sure who will speak for the Panhandle Butterfly House, but I just wanted to kind of open it up with that discussion.
Thank you, Dan. We'll start it off with Poet Forum. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to hear what everybody says. We just want to try to get to the point and not belay things that we have spent numerous hours on already this year. But Mr. Anderson, thank you for coming. Please, everybody just remember for the clerk, when you come up, please state your name and address so that they can get it on record, and we do have your speaker forms.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bill Anderson, 8171 Stillwater Cove in Navarre. Sir, I've got your intent of the 3 minutes per speaker. I would ask your forbearance on that issue this morning. I do have prepared remarks. We have been formally involved in negotiations since May on this issue, when we were included in those negotiations, involved in some way or another for about 14 months. And I would appreciate the opportunity time-wise to get through my prepared comments, if that's acceptable to you. Thank you, sir. So these comments will be from my position as the president of the Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge, and thus its singular spokesman to this board. This contrasts sharply with the butterfly program, which is so many spokesmen, frankly, I no longer know who speaks for them in an official capacity and what that capacity is. ECWR isn't the bad guy here, nor are we trying to steal the butterfly house, as you yourselves have said, despite how we've been painted in unsocial media. We rehabilitate 6 injured and orphaned wildlife, and we educate our citizens about that wildlife, with particular focus on underprivileged schools, period. ECWR became aware of this board's thought to move the butterfly house to our property after alluded to the TDC discussions, suggesting co-location of ECWR and the butterfly house. It was a good idea then, and it remains one now. We invited butterfly reps to our property in 2017, where they identified 14 species of native butterfly on this beautiful property. What we thought were earnest negotiations began in May 2018 with butterfly program reps. Both organizations realized the opportunities presented by co-location. These include the inherent synergies and savings involved with shared facilities, shared and like-minded volunteers, increased attraction to local residents and tourists alike for a site offering more jointly than separately, thus increasing revenue for both organizations. Location on the major north-south corridor into Navarre, a natural setting for both butterflies and human visitors, reduced construction costs, less hurricane damage susceptibility, the uncertainty of potential Highway 98 widening or overpass construction, new or expanded Navarre Bridge construction, avoiding the Butterfly House being closed for 2 years while Navarre Park was rebuilt, a shared mission set of conservation education, and an opportunity to save the taxpayer and county hundreds of thousands of dollars. All these advantages remain today. In late October, after these months of discussions in which co-location was supported to the extent that the executive director of the Butterfly Program parent nonprofit stated that, no matter what the Butterfly House Board decides, we are doing this. They then did an unannounced 180-degree flip, scheduled meetings with various county officials without an invite of ECWR, and decided to pursue a single-focused strategy of remaining in Navarre Park, acknowledging that this could effectively end the existence of the Butterfly Program in Navarre if you, the commissioners, didn't support it remaining there. In short, their strategy became one of Navarre Park or nothing, attempting to leave this board, ECWR, the taxpayer, and supporters of both organizations without options. I'm told this was an attempt to leverage those negotiations we had with them into forcing you to support the Butterfly House remaining in Navarre Park forever, a strategy identified to me by a Panhandle Butterfly House volunteer for reasons only known to them. However, they can't identify their own basic requirements they expect the taxpayer to pay for, such as building sizes, staffing, sources of operations and maintenance funds, a credible business plan, etc., after 14 months. We at ECWR have heard proposed vivarium sizes from 1,100 square feet to 10,000 square feet from Butterfly Program personnel. Following those disingenuous and unilateral actions, ECWR submitted a proposal to Santa Rosa County Administrator to build a vivarium on ECWR property to preserve a butterfly house operated by Butterfly House volunteers in our community, both in the short and long term. To give you, Santa Rosa County's commissioners and our county taxpayers options rather than a take it or leave it decision, and to buy further time to work through issues facing Navarre Park redevelopment, as well as realizing all the advantages discussed above. In exchange, we asked for compensation for the ECWR land the Butterfly House would occupy for whatever term you, the county, determined, be that 2 or 32 years, as any fiscally responsible organization would do. It has been brought to our attention that an individual I can only characterize as a disgruntled former volunteer for the refuge has launched an online petition to have the Butterfly House remain in Navarre Park, an individual that repeatedly violated not just ECWR policy that she helped author, but more importantly, its corporate bylaws. And when held to the very standard she'd helped create and our bylaws, decided instead of complying, to go on a campaign of misinformation against the ECWR and its board. This petition has major problems. First, you can click to sign the petition without ever reading it. Second, the petition host doesn't verify statements in the petition, but allows whomever posts it to say whatever they desire. Most importantly, per review of ECWR's general counsel that I have here, it contains many untruths about the refuge made with an intent to harm and therefore is libelous and illegal. To quote, there are numerous state and federal statutes that could apply to foresters' false statements, and if ECWR does decide to take action, to mention just a few, she has violated common law, libel laws, the Federal Electronic Communications Privacy Act, as well as sections of Florida Statute Chapter 770. Our council has contacted the petition host to have it removed. A cease and desist order has been issued to Forrester to quit her illegal behavior and to quit trying to speak about ECWR matters that she has not now, nor ever did have, knowledge of, as she has never been asked to nor served on our board of directors or our staff. Here are the facts, despite the hyperbole on social media and this libelous petition. The Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge has been a leader in conservation education and wildlife rehabilitation for over 24 years. We are not pretending to be a regional draw or nonprofit. We are one. We hold federal and state permissions and permits specifically authorizing us to rescue, handle, and treat some of our nation's most threatened and endangered species. The organization is in the best financial position of its 24-year existence, according to the refuge's long-standing CPA. We are debt-free. We have an operational reserve to ensure long-term financial strength of the organization. We operate 365 days a year with a full-time professional staff. We successfully operated a 10-acre open-to-the-public facility. We care for up to 300 animals at a time. This year alone, we have attracted over 10,943 volunteer hours, had 1,703 patients responding to over 157 species, whose lives were literally in our hands. We don't purchase butterflies or other animals, we save them. We've raised and committed over $240,000 of ECWR funds for our building project in 7 months. We are governed by an incredibly talented board of directors consisting of professionals from 3 counties currently leading businesses as diverse as law firms, veterinarian clinics, airline pilots, Fortune 500 companies, and senior retired military officers. They lead community service organizations and nonprofits throughout the Emerald Coast, and they are present here today. There they all are in the back. We have just been named one of our nation's top nonprofits and been competitively selected for a $100,300 grant by Impact 100 Pensacola Bay Area following the rigorous processes these professional ladies use to award their grants. I'm very proud of our efforts. This contrasts markedly with a Butterfly House program that is not a nonprofit, but a program of a nonprofit in partnership with the University of Florida. I know of no financial commitments from either the nonprofit nor the university to fund or even partially fund a new Butterfly House display area or vivarium. Nor have we heard from the board members of these organizations who have been remarkably uninvolved and uncommitted in this process, which is telling. In fact, neither the nonprofit nor university even mentioned the Butterfly House program in their mission statements. Yet Butterfly House personnel calling themselves a board of directors claim that taxpayer and county dollars are their money and insist that the location of where that money is spent is theirs to dictate, despite this lack of financial contribution, fundraising, credible business planning, or even frankly, what the requirements are for these proposed facilities, nor how they would be paid for, operated, or maintained. Instead, after at least 14 months of inaction or nonsense, in November you graciously gave them yet another month to develop a credible business plan. And while gracious from your perspective, the net effect has been that after doing all we've been asked by the county to do, this additional month has only allowed the haters to attempt to shift the blame to ECWR for the failures on the part of the Butterfly House to adequately plan and chart their own future. I'd ask that you put an end to this long drama today and vote today to support the recommendation made to you by the county administrator in November and get ECWR out of the middle of a problem we did not create but have been trying to help solve. Co-location is in the best interest of all concerned. Under our proposal, the Butterfly House, ECWR, our community, and the taxpayer win and save hundreds of thousands of dollars in the process. Under theirs, only the Butterfly program wins. Co-location ensures continued uninterrupted operation of the Butterfly House under Butterfly House volunteers, strengthens the financial positions of both organizations, ensures constructions of facility used by both organizations is executed expeditiously, facilitates the move of ECWR to Santa Rosa County, creates new jobs here, increases county tourism revenues by creating the site truly a regional attraction, and as previously stated, saves taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars, all in a beautiful setting more natural to butterflies and wildlife. If you decide to support the Butterfly House in another location later, any money allocated today won't be wasted, as ECWR can re-roll a vivarium to support other animal rehabilitation efforts at that time. Perhaps most importantly, co-location was the recommendation to this board by your county administrator in November, who is not beholden to either the Butterfly House or ECWR, but rather the taxpayer and you as commissioners. If asked, I believe you to recommend ECWR's proposal as at least an interim solution today, as it provides maximum flexibility at minimum cost and addresses all substantive issues. It is my hope the actions of ECWR's Board of Directors, volunteers, and staff over the past 2 years working with this board and county officials to bring this highly respected organization to Santa Rosa County, and the professional behavior of all ECWR personnel, paid or volunteer, in the face of unmerited, non-factual, and libelous statements, has earned your respect, confidence, and trust. I'm very proud of the way ECWR personnel have acted and frankly refrained from acting in this matter. The Board of ECWR says what it means and does what it says. We will preserve a Butterfly House for our community, expand its operations, hours of operations to merit the significant investment being considered here, and continue a long-established tradition of excellence in all we do through able leadership, sound strategic, operational, and financial planning, and continue to serve the communities, citizens, and wildlife we have served since 1994, Santa Rosa and Navarre foremost among them. In a very real way, you, as the commissioners, are investing in leadership as much as you are in facilities. I was recently asked by a member of the press why ECWR would still consider hosting a Butterfly House after all the negativity from a very vocal and perhaps criminally uninformed minority. My simple answer was that it's the right thing to do for our community, and doing the right thing is sometimes difficult. However, we need your support to get this done, to bring our incredible organization to Santa Rosa County and help a Butterfly House open, as we just poured the foundation on one of our 2 buildings last Tuesday. We need a decision and the funding associated with that decision to continued forward progress, both ECWR's and the Butterfly House. This issue has lingered way too long already with no positive results. I encourage you to act today by voting to support our proposal so we can all move forward and get on with productive work as opposed to destructive words. Thank you. I respectfully welcome any questions you may have and the opportunity to speak for public record on behalf of the Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge's part to dispel the illegal and disinformation out there.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate you taking the time to come today. If we will, just for a statement, I'm assuming, does the Panhandle Butterfly House, I think that's a good point. I yielded a considerable time. I think it was actually wrapped it up to 15 minutes exactly. But do we have either Mary Salinas or Kevin, I know that represents a singular voice for the Panhandle Butterfly House that would like to speak first?
Well, I was going to speak first, but I don't know if I'm going to be the singular voice.
All right, Kevin, why don't you come up and, if you don't mind, we'll allow Kevin to speak. Just, I know he's been intricately involved with discussions as well, and that way we can get all the comments out of the way and then move forward with making the decision. I think that's what everybody's looking for today.
All right, thank you. Kevin Smith, 6758 Park Avenue, Milton. Wow, where do I start? First of all, the Butterfly House has never failed. They've been there for 21 years. I don't know where he gets that. This has been a long, drawn-out situation that we've been in since, I don't know, when did it start? July of 17? And, you know, we're not trying to just take money from the taxpayers. We don't want to waste money for the taxpayers. We've even come to the conclusion that, yes, being in Navarre Park is very expensive. Give us an opportunity to put the Panhandle Butterfly House in an alternate spot that would be good for the community, good for tourism, good for Santa Rosa County. That's what we're trying to do. This has been a successful program. It's one of the cornerstones of Navarre and has been for a long time. We didn't want, if we would have known that we was going to get bulldozed, we would have been up here fighting totally against redoing Navarre Park, and we would have stayed in our little happy place where we've been for 21 years. Mr. Anderson does not speak for the Panhandle Butterfly House. Several people have that are involved in the Panhandle Butterfly House. There's a lot of people that make that program happen, and they're fantastic people. I've had the pleasure of working with them for going on 5 years now. There are several issues why we decided not to go to the Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge. One of which we just got slammed by their president. Would you want to move into somebody that just come up here and slammed you on public record? I don't think so. 98, if we were in an area such as Midway, maybe close to the zoo, we would use synergy with the zoo. The zoo has more visitors than any other attraction in the Navarre area. I think it's like 45,000 people a year. We could draw some of those people going to visit the zoo, and actually the zoo could probably draw some people that are just coming to visit the Butterfly House. And it would also give Santa Rosa County the opportunity to draw tourists from Pensacola Beach that has many more visitors than Navarre. And when they come to Santa Rosa County, they go to the businesses to eat, they buy fuel. We could get those tax dollars as well, in my opinion. Correct me if I'm wrong. Mr. Anderson said that we had been in talks. We did invite them to come to our meetings and have discussions. Nobody from the Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge has offered anybody from the Panhandle Butterfly House to attend any of their meetings. We don't know their board of directors. I know 2 people, or 3 people, and that's Mr. Robbins, Mr. Anderson, and Miss Stormy. Where he came up with a 1,200 square foot vivarium to a 10,000 square foot vivarium is beyond my reasoning. We don't need a 10,000 square foot vivarium. We have settled on 1,800 square feet, and it's been steady at 1,800 square feet. They're offering 1,200. We think that's too small. Longevity, Keep Santa Rosa Beautiful has been a nonprofit in Santa Rosa County 35 years as of 2019. We're going to receive our 35-year plaque from Keep America Beautiful next year. That's longevity. The Panhandle Butterfly House has been a program of us for 21 years. Never been in the red. We have a little chunk of change in the bank right now. We've never had to go out and look for hundreds of thousands of dollars. We just didn't need it. We were able to get enough money from donations to sustain for the past 21 years. For somebody to say that's a failure is just plumb ridiculous. The biggest threat to wildlife and this is consensus beyond, with scientists worldwide, is loss of habitat. You can try to save all the animals you want, but if you don't have a habitat for them to live in, you're wasting your money. Do I think we shouldn't spend money to try to save wildlife? Absolutely not. But if you want to get down to the true science of the matter, it's loss of habitat. The Panhandle Butterfly House teaches people to put habitat for wildlife, butterflies or wildlife, birds or wildlife. We teach people to put these habitats in their yard. We could still have development and still create habitat for wildlife. And I don't know about y'all, but I would rather have birds and butterflies flying around in my backyards than squirrels and raccoons. That's just my opinion. Keep Santa Rosa Beautiful has been around for a very long time. We have sustained ourselves. Yes, we do get taxpayers' money to help with our programs. The Panhandle Butterfly House does not. I do not give them any money from Keep Santa Rosa Beautiful. They are self-contained and they govern themselves. We let the volunteers govern the Butterfly House because these volunteers put in their hard work and their money, and we think that they should have a voice in governing that organization. Excuse me. So we let them do that, and it has worked out very good for a very long time. We did not know that we were not going to be in Navarre Park for sure until about 2 months ago. For the first biggest part of 2018, or at least until like June, we thought we were going to be in Navarre Park. We need time to find alternates. To put us with the Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge is not going to work. And honestly, I don't know, I haven't seen a business plan from Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge. Have y'all? How do we know they're going to be able to sustain themselves, much less a butterfly house as well? We just want the opportunity to explore more options and keep the butterfly house governing themselves because we know that works. That is not a waste of taxpayers' money. That is going to help the community and tourism. And we would also like to look at having a satellite office of Keep Santa Rosa Beautiful in the south end of the county. I do work with a lot of nonprofits down there to remove litter from the beaches and the waterways. And I work with other nonprofits doing presentations on things such as household hazardous waste and stuff like that. My mouth's dry, sorry. We would like to have a little satellite office down there and concentrate on water quality. We've pretty much got a good control on point source pollution. We would like to start teaching the public about non-point source pollution, which is nutrients and toxins coming out of mostly people's yards. Don't use as much fertilizer. Educate them on what plants, what vegetation to put in their yard to keep them from having to use more pesticides and more fertilizers. This is going to create more habitat in our waterways down south. That is the most important thing for ecology right now is habitat. And having good water quality in our estuaries in the south end of the county is not only going to help the health of our community, but it's also going to help tourism. I do not have to talk about the red tide that South Florida had to go through. We are constantly building in the south end of the county. Let's tackle that problem before it becomes a problem and clean our waterways. Teach our public on how to do that so it don't become a problem down the road. We have several things to offer Santa Rosa County. We just want the opportunity to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. As a, just a point of record, so I don't get away from the goal of trying to get it, we are now at 9:55, so we've been on this issue for exactly 30 minutes. We will try to, further speakers that come, we'll try to implement a 3-minute timer, and that's just, again, so I've got a lot of speaker forms, and we've got to get through it. But
I'm sorry, any questions?
I don't think so. I think we're all, I feel confident I speak for the board when I say extremely versed in what's going on. We've had numerous briefs, and I think the commissioners will let you know how they feel after we hear from the public.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Salinas, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you so much, Commissioners. Mary Salinas, UF-IFAS Extension, Santa Rosa County. I would like to speak strictly to present some information. The Panhandle Butterfly House has been in operation for 21 years. And in that operation, it has been a long process of education, trial and error, consultation with experts on how to run a butterfly house. It is not an easy thing to do. It's not something that you can just put up an enclosure, throw in some butterflies and some plants, and everything takes care of itself. It is a very complicated procedure, actually. It's running a butterfly house is not a simple process. I would like to read a letter from Dr. Jarrett Daniels. He is the Associate Curator and Program Director at the McGuire Center for Lepidoptera and Biodiversity at the Florida Museum of Natural History. One of his jobs is to run the butterfly house there in Gainesville, if you've ever been there. It is a worldwide, a world-class center for butterfly research. People come from all over the world. They have one of the largest butterfly collections in the world. Dr. Daniels is a recognized worldwide expert on butterflies. And I had told him about the current situation, and he wrote me this letter. This letter is meant to reiterate my strong support for the Panhandle Butterfly House. I can continue to work on formalizing the affiliation with the Florida Museum of Natural History and the University of Florida. I see numerous benefits of this affiliation, including the role of environmental education and increasing science literacy. Connecting people to nature is a critical component of both of our missions. Based on my past review of your organism and facility protocols, you have a very sound operational manual and plan, and we have worked with him continually over the years. The long-standing expertise of your volunteers and staff is essential to providing high-quality organism husbandry, plant care, and ultimately deliver an exceptional visitor experience. Having been involved in this industry for over 25 years, I have seen many attempts to launch projects and exhibits with limited operation and animal/botanical experience. Without exception, such ventures woefully underestimate the amount of work and training required to be successful, and they ultimately fail. This is a highly specialized industry that requires equally specialized expertise and background. The Panhandle Butterfly House has maintained this high standard, and in my opinion, is clearly the best entity to pursue expansion or renovation moving forward. I look very much forward to continuing to work with you and the Panhandle Butterfly House in the future and of further strengthening our affiliation. I have copies for all of you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Salinas. And we're gonna have you come up next. I know you've been standing there extremely patient, so thank you for doing that. Please come forward. Just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Nancy Forrester, 6825 Tidewater Drive, Navarre, Florida. I'm speaking to you as an 18-year resident of Navarre who wants to ensure the best future for our community. I want to be perfectly clear that I am not now, nor have ever been, an official volunteer with the Panhandle Butterfly House. No one affiliated with the PBH has influenced my opinions or statements. I am, however, a former docent for the Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge and will always have that status, having volunteered there for 9 years as a docent, teaching the public about wildlife. Until the latest leadership, everything has been closely knit, tight group. I won 2 awards for Docent of the Year, gave many thousands of hours to the refuge. I am kind of a community, I have probably a community reputation for working for the good guy. All of the experienced Emerald Coast Wildlife docents with 13 to 21 years experience each voluntarily resigned at the same time this summer. They would have liked to have been present today also, but surgery, therapy, ill husbands have prevented their attendance. Their letters tell their story. 2 are present here today. The Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge head MedTech has given her notice also, and her last day is December 28th. Ask yourself, why is everybody leaving? I understand that since the original approvals of the Navarre Park revisions included PBH in Navarre Park, thoughts have changed direction several times. PBH has been a part of the community for 21 years, raising their own money, paying and building their own buildings, vivarium, greenhouse, gazebo, etc., had their own board of directors, and always been in the black. They didn't ask for this or cause this upset. While I personally would have liked them to remain in Navarre Park, I am asking that you please support them in a different direction. Allow them to maintain their independence. They have proven their stability and abilities. It would be only fair to them to reimburse them for the buildings that you will soon bulldoze in one way or another. Give them funds or give them a grant or provide different property, county property, so that they can continue their own missions on their own property, not property owned by another nonprofit. You should not forget also, this is public knowledge, that the zoning and deed for the refuge property is written such that if Emerald Coast Wildlife Refuge should cease to exist, that Highway 87 property will revert to residential zoning. PBH is a stable, independent entity with a proven record and a great tourist attraction. Allow them to continue as such. Your constituents want you to support, your support and money to go to the Panhandle Butterfly House. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Forrester. Appreciate that.
Any questions? No?
I don't
Okay.
think so.
Thank
All right,
you.
Thank you. Next, yes, ma'am. Please state your name and address for the record. Thank you for coming.
Joanne Connor Steve, 1901 Catamaran Drive, Navarre, Florida. Oh, okay, okay. I have vacationed in Navarre since 1982 and have been a resident in Navarre since 2001. I've been active in many community organizations, including Navarre Town Center from its initial meeting through Architectural Review Board member. As you know, the Butterfly House was built 21 years ago by an agreement with Jack Weatherall and the county. It was built solely with donations and donated labor. When Hurricane Ivan destroyed the building, again, it was rebuilt solely with donations and donated labor. Mr. Shebler stated that there was never a lease for the building, and it is because no county funds were used to build, repair, or maintain the building, and at that time, a handshake was meaningful. The PBH has been self-sufficient, attracting thousands of residents and visitors from the U.S. and foreign countries. This has helped local businesses and added tax dollars to the community. The PBH has only been a benefit to the community and the county by adding a family-friendly area and an educational attraction and having economic impact. The Navarre Community Center was on Navarre School Road, was built solely with community donations and community labor. No county money was added for that building. The county sold the building to the Navarre Area Board of Realtors with the promise of locating a building in the Navarre communities area. As with the town center plan, community members asked whatever happened to it, and they asked me as a member. Because they were in favor of it and did not stay up with local happenings, and therefore not vocal, they were let down by its elimination. So too will be the case of PBH, no longer the identity of the Navarre Park and something that is Navarre's history and a jewel of the community. Questions. Is it a wonder why the issue of Incorporate Navarre ever came about? Why is the projected cost of the building, the PBH at the park, higher than anticipated by a local architect with experience in building in Navarre and county projects? Even the local home construction is only $118 a square foot. Why are we here today, after the PBH has been approved twice in the past for being built in the park? No doubt the community will appreciate and enjoy the new Navarre Park, but at what price does the community have to continue to pay to receive any county benefits? Any questions?
Thank you so much for coming and sharing. Please come forward. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Just state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Brian Heike. I live at 8361 Mercado Street in Navarre, and I'm just a private citizen who's lived here for 14 years. I am not involved with the Butterfly House, although I've appreciated what it has to offer during the time that I've lived here. I'm going to make this very simple. My philosophy is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, it's been running in the black with no problems for all these years, 21 years, I understand, and only with the $7 million improvement plan for the park was there any question of it continuing on into the future. I don't understand why they need to be eliminated. My feeling is, let me just backtrack a minute. I feel they've been put in an untenable position. Right now, they're running in the black. All their costs are paid for by volunteers and donations, and here they're set to have to pay for a building that was going to cost $1 million, at repaying the county at $100,000 a year. It pretty much set them up for failure, because how are they going to go from living in a situation in a building that's already paid for, that the county never had to invest money in, to a $1 million facility that then would put them in the red and make it almost impossible to come up with a business plan to actually meet those criteria. Now, I haven't seen the business plan that has been presented recently, so I don't know whether they're able to justify the costs in that. But I would say I would keep them a separate entity. I fully support them moving to another site along 98. But I just feel that they've been put in a position just by plans that really didn't include them at the inception, that they had to do something. I mean, they could go on the way it is without this entire $7 million redevelopment of the park. So I just want people to keep in mind, they've been running in the black on volunteer labor and donations alone. This is putting a real hardship on them, and I don't think that hardship is fair, particularly since they've been one of the preeminent tourist locations in the county. So I feel that really they should be given some kind of leeway in terms of working with them for a workable solution for them to remain an entity unto themselves. And that's basically what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing that today. Hey, good morning. Just name and address for her record, please.
Jenny Weber, 9900 Norman Riley Road on the Bob Cole side of Holt. And I'm speaking to you gentlemen today as the Vice President of the Panhandle Butterfly House, newly put in there. Good morning. I bring to you the will of the people today, and that's the Panhandle Butterfly House, a lot of the community and the visitors. 49.7% of the people that take the time to log into our book are actually from the outside of the Tri-County area, and all of us hardworking volunteers. Our official position on the Emerald Wildlife Refuge is, even though it was a little inflammatory today, Thank you very much for the offer. However, we wish you well in your endeavors, no matter what happens on social media. And, but you can assume zero support from the Panhandle Butterfly House in that location. So that's pretty abundantly clear, right? We are reluctant to remove from the park because then we'll be homeless without a commitment from you for a future location. So we understand the price of building there would make our size so small it would be ineffective. So then an alternate location that we choose is the best option at this moment. It would empower us to build a bigger and better PBH, expanding the KSRB mission and our own. And let's see, we're very confident that with a budget of $550,000, which is less than half of the original 1.2 estimated idea in Navarre Park, $550,000 will give us the opportunity to set a budget, find a property that will work for us, get the building costs, get the engineering done. We'll make a big, fantastic place and something that all of us can be proud of in the county. I do ask your support for that today. Hopefully you can just make a courageous motion. It's Robert's rules, right? Just make a courageous motion to fund us for an alternate location. That would be great. Probably not going to happen, I see. But if you throw it back to the TDC, there has been a lot of talk. I can tell you it will be a bad idea. It will be considered a slap in the face, a total lack of disrespect for all of the time and energy and the emotional turmoil that we've already been through, all the time and redundancy in going over our merits and the reason we need to be there. You've also patiently endured already. So let's not go backwards. Let's step forward and continue with a new location, option C. Thank you. Do you have any questions for me?
Oh, thank you, Ms. Weber, so much. Please come forward and just state your name and address for her record, please. Thank you for coming.
I'm Nicky Walker. My address is 6340 Pansy Drive, Milton, Florida. I'm a native of Santa Rosa County. Been here all my life. I'm a graduate of Munson, Florida. So those are some of my credentials. I am the chairman of the Santa Rosa Clean Community System. I've been there about when it started. Benny Russell asked me to volunteer for that job, and I said, yes, Mr. Russell, I will be happy to volunteer for this job. So I became on the board. And 21 years ago, Jack Weatherall and his wife came to us and said, we would like to be a part of your group. And the board said, yes, we would like to have you. And then he came to you. I was thinking about Mr. Salter might be here at that time, but he hasn't got that many years in. But y'all agreed to let him go there and start the Butterfly House. There was nothing there at this time. He took volunteers and built that structure. He would come back to us every month and report to us how great this thing was going. John Tunkin was the director at that time, and John would go down as an advisor, not a dictator. John Tunkin advised him, and then when John died, we hired Kevin, and Kevin is an advisor to them. I would like for you to really consider looking at the Butterfly group here that's been there 21 years. I think they have about 100 volunteers, which I think is pretty good. They have about 14,000 people go through this, which I think is real good. Now, if I wanted to know something about log, I'd look at Mr. Lynchard over here, because I know Mr. Lynchard is smart. And Roy, I know Roy is smart, but I taught him just a few years ago. If I wanted to know something about a car, I look at Bob over here. I say, Bob, fix my car. Will you please? And Bob would fix it. I would not go to somebody that I don't know and kind of use a little slander back there. He is a polished person, by the way. That's all I'll say. I encourage you to work with the Butterfly House and let them look at you and give you a suggestion. My suggestion would be, I would like to see them stay there where they're at. But I'll be very honest with you. I would not spend $1 million on a structure there for them. I would look at the zoo. Do you have 2 acres down there at the zoo? Put them on that 2 acres, lease it to them for $1 an acre, and then build a building. That building's got to be worth something. Build a building there.
You own that building. So when I come and say, Bob, why did you spend that money on that structure? Bob's going to say, that's our structure. We're listening to them. So please talk to the Butterfly Group. I'm talking about this Butterfly Group, not ever who this other individual over here is with his little curly hair. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Let's try to keep it civil. All right, well, I think we're going to wrap you up with the last speaker. We may yield 3 minutes back to Mr. Anderson, and then we'll bring it in for Alana. We've been going 50 minutes now. Thank you for coming. Just state your name and address for her record, please.
I'm Becky Smith at 6150 Happy Hollow in Milton. The Panhandle Butterfly House has a 21-year history of service to the people in Santa Rosa County. Do we give this all up to the Wildlife Refuge, the Johnny-come-lately new group in town, who has no history in Santa Rosa County? We cannot give money initially designated for the PBH to the Wildlife Refuge, where butterflies would take the back seat to raccoons, squirrels, and such, and the diseases that come with them. If we look at the Wildlife Refuge, who just recently moved to Santa Rosa County after 25 years in Okaloosa, has anyone asked why they left Okaloosa County? They are only here because of an internal donation by one of their directors that brought them to Santa Rosa County. They were forced out of their space when they could not honor their commitment to Okaloosa County Commission for providing proper space for their activities. Who is to say they will not repeat the same bad decisions as the 25-year history? Yes, they say they have new management, which I'm sure they were under directions of several directors over the years, each one hoping that they could make a difference. Yet, did they not build a permanent home? And that's the reason that they left that particular location on the Sound in Okaloosa. They have not proven themselves to the taxpayers of this county. Okaloosa County did not find them another home. Why? Let's look at the land upon which they were donated, and we've heard a little about this. It's not a true ownership for the Wildlife Refuge. It's borrowed land. The deed has a reverter, therefore the land and improvements placed on it are subject to go back to the ownership of the Andersons, not to Santa Rosa County. If at the same point in time they are not self-sustaining, that would be the end of the Wildlife Refuge on this piece of land. Does this create a forever hands out to Santa Rosa County for a continuous stream of funds in the future to come? Or is it dependent on getting the funds you designated for the Panhandle Butterfly House? We're only here because of the new person that came into town. We would not be having these discussions. In preparation for the meeting, and I know it's been mentioned before, that the PBH was asked to provide a business plan, which they did. In contrast, the Wildlife Refuge has not provided a business plan. Contacts with accounting officials have confirmed this. Why is the PBH having to jump through hoops to prove themselves? In short, the PBH is merely asking that the county provide the same thing for it that it has provided for years, a place to conduct their activities, because of the loss of the same when the county determined it had other plans for Navarre Park. They deserve more than being dumped on the street. Volunteers have served the PBH for 21 years. Yes, they are sustainable. They don't pay salaries out in excess or extreme of thousands of dollars. They actually operate by volunteers who love to work. I hope you will treat the members of the Panhandle Butterfly House with the kindness and compassion that that organization has merited based on its long service to Santa Rosa County and the residents thereof. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am. We're going to give you 2 minutes, rebuttal, and then we'll allow her, and I think we'll close the public forum after that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I suspect I won't need 2 minutes, but frankly, the Butterfly House comments today have proven my point by including numerous factual errors, what I saw based and versus what they said that I said. 1,200 versus 1,100 square foot vivarium, 10,000 square foot numbers for their vivarium. That's all numbers that they gave us. We didn't create those numbers at various points in the time. I've been a resident of Santa Rosa County since 1993, as has my wife. Slammed by their organization this morning, we have stated the facts, and I think that's a wild implication after the months that we have silently accepted the derogatory information put forth by Panhandle Butterfly House volunteers. We do not, again, we do not want to run a butterfly house. We will remain separate entities, and we expect volunteers who are not looking for the drama associated with this issue and just want to continue great Butterfly House work will want to continue their efforts regardless of location. Ms. Forrester again stated a factual inaccuracy. Former docents that she worked for are still with ECWR productively as docents. She was not a docent for ECWR in perpetuity. That's not the way it works, and we gladly accepted her resignation. We have not been asked to leave Okaloosa. We're leaving because ECWR, for the first time in its history, will be provided a permanent home to conduct operations. We have been supporting Santa Rosa County as an organization for literally decades, so we are certainly not new to Santa Rosa County, as you know. Our project costs, to include the general commercial contractor doing the project at cost as a philanthropic contribution, and to include our $210,000 land donation, which somehow is being characterized as a negative thing, really leaves me scratching my head as to how they can get it done for $550,000, but that's their issue, not mine. This land was transferred, and ECWR owns the title to this property in April of 2018. It will forever be there, and as I think I have shared with you, it is the intent of my wife and I to donate further amounts of that property upon our passing, so we don't quite understand that falsehood either. Again, those concludes my comments. I appreciate the opportunity to once again try and clear the public record. Any further questions, sir?
No, thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, you'll be our last speaker before we close public forum for this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. My name is Heidi Allgood. I reside at 2315 Heritage Circle, Navarre, Florida. I sent an email kind of belatedly to y'all. I apologize. I've been a bit out of things because I've been caring for my grandmother who recently passed away on the 18th of November, so was not able to attend the November meeting where this was mainly spoken of. But when I read, I have seen, honestly, mainly through social media and reading the news, what's been going on. And I wanted to come as a former special education teacher at West Navarre Intermediate School as a user of the Panhandle Butterfly House to talk about the educational impact. I've heard both groups speak of this, but I'm a personal benefiter of that as a teacher, and so were my students at the time. There aren't a lot of places that you can go as a teacher, especially ESC students, in Santa Rosa County that are within driving distance, that are affordable, that can have the educational impact that the Butterfly House has. And one of the benefits was just a very relaxed atmosphere. ESC students need a very quiet, very comfortable, very tolerant place to be able to learn. And the park and the close proximity of the Butterfly House, to me, was of great benefit to that. Also, the cost to the students and the parents and to the school to be able to attend that is one of the reasons I would be an advocate to keep it in the park, but I do understand if that's not a possibility. I had spoken last year ago in December with y'all about parks related to a different topic, and at the time, I believe, I remember there was a park that's titled West Navarre Park that has never been developed. It is also along the Sound. I don't know if the Butterfly House is aware of that, but that, I believe, is publicly owned by the county and might provide another place that is close to the Sound that would keep it on 98 as a more accessible, still separate entity. I just would like to say that seeing those students learn in that environment with the very gracious and loving volunteers who had such expertise, and then to be able to take those lessons back into, we had our own life cycle of a butterfly that we spent several weeks on watching them develop. And the kids, that was probably one of the most impactful lessons that we did with those 3 to 5-year-old students that had learning delays, speech delays, autism, Down syndrome. So I think when you're considering what to do with it, first I would try and make sure it doesn't close, that you give them the opportunity and the time to find a location they can move to that will not cause any break in operation, and that you really work with these folks. They are good at what they do, and they're a benefit to this community. And one last thing, I'm also going to be, I am no longer teaching, but I have grandchildren that I wanted to bring to the Butterfly House this summer. My grandson turns 2 in January. I have a 6-month-old grandson. And to have to say to my daughter, who has spent the last 12 years, in this area, sorry, the Board of County Commissioners closed it. It'd be a very sad thing for the children of this community. So both as a former educator and as a parent and grandparent, please keep the Butterfly House open and give them the time to work out what they need to stay open while moving to a new facility, if that's the choice you as Board of County Commissioners make. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming, Ms. Allgood. We do that a lot. I go to a Pentecostal church, so we like hand claps. So, we're going to close public forum. We've been on this item now for a hair over an hour. Is the board good, or does anybody need a 5-minute break? Or all right, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I'll yield the floor to Commissioner Peach. He's got his microphone on. I would have started off, but
if you want to, go ahead.
I'll try to bring it in for a landing. I'm not going to rehash anything. This board's aware of what we went through. I just want to say I hate to see that we basically got such partisanship amongst a community and our county between organizations. That was definitely, I don't think, ever the intent of anybody on this board. I don't think it was the intent of anybody from either organization. I think both of you have mission statements that want to foster a better sense of community. It is very worthy to state these are volunteers that have run an organization for, now we're talking about 2 decades. This came to the board, obviously a couple years ago. Commissioner Williamson championed this idea. I remember me and Mr. Cole, I know I even had a conversation out there one morning where we had said, hey, we would support you even if it is a different location. We were all sorts of different information coming of us and the evolution, and it would change. And then the unfortunate thing is I think a lot of people supported a plan that may have not been what they intended or had hoped for. And but that plan took us down an evolution that got us to where we are today. And where we are today is basically, hey, look, we've got a Navarre Park plan that's been approved. We've expended considerable time and resources to get that, and now the administrator is saying, hey, look, guys, I've got to know, give me an answer on what to do. Are we moving forward with this plan, or are we going to continue laboring it? I think probably the best idea I've ever heard, and I think today was the first time I'd heard it. I'm not saying it hadn't been sent, but at least verbally heard of even partnering with the zoo. I never even thought of that before, but that's terrific. Anyway, it's not here for me to say what happens to the Butterfly House, what happens to ECWR. That's not the decision we're looking at today. I think today what our administrator is asking us is to give him direction on, hey, can we move forward with the park? we're going to do that, even based on some of the comments of folks here today, of it will not include this new butterfly house vivarium that was brought in the $7 million park plan that was stated earlier. I wholeheartedly, and I fully believe that Commissioner Cole wholeheartedly still stands behind the comments that were made in this room and in that foyer a year and a half ago when we said, hey, just because we're not building it there doesn't mean that we won't support it. I know it came out of my mouth and his mouth, and I'm not saying that nothing about the other commissioners that don't support it, or I'm saying I know we stated that it's not tied to a location. And I know some of you personally conveyed to me that it had been told to you that it was tied to. That was the only way the county would help. I know Commissioner Cole graciously gave me the opportunity to serve as a member on the Tourist Development Council, and I was told by those members personally that they had concerns over this program. They had asked to review it again. I learned a lot during that year. And it wasn't about that they weren't extremely grateful for the Panhandle Butterfly House. Again, it was over the stewardship of the tax dollars of the plan that had been presented. And again, that wasn't your plan that you initiated, so I don't want it to be portrayed as that. Really, I would love to see, I think it's clear that both entities are clearly going to be separate from here on out. That is not a merger I don't feel this board wants to try to facilitate. However, I would love to see that both of you continue to move forward and prosper with your plans. So, my opinion today for both organizations would be concerned, and I guess slightly different than Ms. Weber had stated, was that as far as my feelings, it would be that we would advise the administrator to move forward with the park construction plans without the building that had been designated that it was going to be the Panhandle Butterfly House. Yet we asked, and that way the Panhandle Butterfly House, I don't want you to feel like, and I do think what's been stated by a few people where, hey, we sort of felt super rushed to come up with this huge plan, and I think maybe some of that, we can say was conveyed, but sometimes communication's two ways. One person may be saying something and another person not necessarily understand the meeting, and I think that's happened on a few levels here. And I won't go further into that, but really where I think we're at is we need to advise him to move forward, not building that facility there that was on the initial plan, and telling the Panhandle Butterfly House, hey, look, meet, if it's 2 weeks, fine, or if it's 2 months, fine, however long you need to shore up, this is the direction we want to head now that we actually know, okay, we're not going in the park. Come back. I would love to see it go back to the TDC, and the only reason I say that is not to belabor or I surely don't want you to take it as a slap in the face for the reason I say that, but after I got to serve on the TDC for that year, and there's quite a few new members there as well that were not there when this came to conception, I've learned the value and the benefit of that. These are citizens just like yourselves that volunteer, that they give hours and hours each month because they care about the future of this community, and I think that is valuable knowledge that I would like to see. The same with the wildlife refuge. I'm not prepared to make any expenditures of any level to the wildlife refuge or their mission without it going through the normal process we do with every other facility that looks at garnering funds that would be tourism related, and that would be to present it to the TDC, take their recommendation, and then this board could decide. But I feel like when we have a citizen advisory board, it's prudent to use that. So those are my feelings. I would support, and I think that's what everybody's really looking for, is sort of just a closure of direction of where are we going. And so I'll stand behind the statement I made a year and a half ago. Support the Panhandle Butterfly House, appreciate what you've done. I don't want you to feel unappreciated. Hey, we've been doing this 2 decades and now they're closing the doors. I don't like it to be portrayed that way, and I don't think the other commissioners felt that way at all. It was, we had, quite frankly, a district commissioner that had a plan, and the Panhandle Butterfly House did have members involved with that plan, and y'all came here and said, hey, we want to go this direction. But again, I think maybe some intentions along the way had, obviously there was just a communication breakdown, and I only say that because now we have members here that feel like, hey, this abruptly came upon us. But those are my feelings, and that way I think that's the direction the administrator is looking for today. Commissioner Peach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you'd indulge me, there's some things I want to get on the record. This is my first meeting. This is our first big issue. So I kind of want to set the stage for folks of why I'm here and why I believe I'm here in this chair representing all of Santa Rosa County. I do want to mirror Chairman Parker's initial comments about the name calling, the slamming, the social media stuff. Personally disgusts me. That's not how I operate. That's how I expect citizens not to operate. So hopefully we could keep things on a civil tongue and treat each other with respect. We're going to disagree. And as I said through my campaign, disagreement is good, but it's got to be civil. So that is my wish moving forward, that we could all act civilly towards each other and minimize the name calling and innuendo. I just want to get that out. You will not hear that from me as long as I'm sitting here in this chair. Okay? I applaud the ECWR for coming to Santa Rosa County. I was excited about it when I first heard about it. I think it's a great addition to our community. They're coming here to bring an attraction and tourism of something we didn't have, and it's helping us to build an ecotourism corridor that I firmly believe in. I don't believe they're trying to steal anything. They were merely presented an option and tried to come up with a solution. And they presented that solution, and we've strung them out for several months. Hopefully today we can end that and they could move forward with their plans. The next thing I want to say is when I hear people talk about my or our money, it's not my money, it's not your money, it's the county and the citizens' money. You will never hear me say, I'm spending my money. It's our money. So that's what we got to be clear. When we spend taxpayer dollars, it's everyone who contributes taxpayer dollars. So it's the best interest of our, big our, that I sit here. I am a fiscally responsible person. I promise to be a fiscally responsible person. If we're going to invest our money into something, it has to be sustainable and maintainable in the future. That's how I operate. That's how I've operated my whole life. I don't buy things at home that I know I can't afford to keep up. And that's where I will go from my position here. Those are the questions I will always ask. I fully support the Panhandle Butterfly House. I think it's an outstanding organization. They do wonderful things for the education of this community. So that being said, there is no question that I want Panhandle Butterfly House to remain in Navarre and on the south end of the county. Where that is, we need to figure it out. I think we can clearly state right now that the relationship between ECWR and the PBH is irreparably shattered. That's what I've heard from Panhandle Butterfly House, correct? That's unfortunate, because I would hope in the future all our nature organizations could work together, because we have a lot of them. So leave here with that in mind after I get through this and we make our motion, if you would. So I think we could let ECWR know that I'm willing to work with them through the TDC and support them in the future. Graciously, I've been appointed to the TDC by Chairman Parker, and we'll make that official Thursday. I will gladly, and I look forward to working with them because I think it's a wonderful opportunity. I look forward to working with the Panhandle Butterfly House as we try to find an option that's both fiscally smart and sustainable to keep the Panhandle Butterfly House in Navarre in the south end of the county. A few things I need to get on record because social media has taken over, and you will not see me go on any of those social media sites. If you want to know from me, you come to my site or from me directly. But there is going to be a cost for the future of the Panhandle Butterfly House. Whether it be $1 million or $500,000 of our, and big our, I'll remind you again, money being invested, we need to assure the citizens that that facility will be maintained, the operation is there. I applaud the business plans that have been submitted. There's still work to do. For those of you who don't know, the first cost to sustain that $1 million facility was estimated over $230,000 a year. The initial proposal was to charge $7 a person to enter the Butterfly House each and every time. It's in the original business plan. The new business plan has far less expenses, averaging around $95,000 a year, but of their own submission, we're looking at $9 per adult and $5 per child on their initial blush for a business plan to operate, sustain, and maintain. So as citizens say they're going to support the Butterfly House, I would hope they take into consideration the whole aspect of support, because we as a community need to support it for the construction and its long-term sustainment and operability. That's a piece we need folks to understand. The petitions have been signed. We can't put the whole bill on the taxpayers. And I'm going to do this with each and every one that comes to the TDC or this board and approaches me, and I'm going to try to convince my fellow commissioners, because I'm just one of 5. But I'm going to be fiscally responsible. So we need to work together to build a Butterfly House, wherever that may be, that is fiscally smart, affordable, and sustainable. And I look forward to working with the community and hearing ideas. I've heard numerous ideas out there now. I know this isn't the answer ECWR wanted, but I think we owe it to them to let them move forward so we could take advantage of what they're bringing to our county. And I look forward to working with the Butterfly House in a civil manner. We're going to disagree on some things, but that's okay. But I would hope at the end, we all come together and student body moves right when the decision's made for the best for this community. That's what I'm going to promise you. So, I would like to make a motion, if allowed, that we press ahead with Navarre Park plans, Phase 1. And I promise you, Navarre Park plan will be looked at, gentlemen. I'm not prepared to back $7 million for the entirety of Navarre Park. But Phase 1 is important to me. It replaces the splash pad. It gets us playground equipment. Who this is all about to me, the kids, the future of Santa Rosa County. And unfortunately, the current Butterfly House is in a location that doesn't warrant a good layout and operability of Navarre Park. That's unfortunate. We knew that from the start. But I want to press ahead with Phase 1, minus the vivarium and the learning center that's currently in the plan. The land that those facilities were going to be put on, I would ask that they remain clean and clear, should we be able to come up with an option to keep it in Navarre Park that's fiscally smart and sustainable. And we let ECWR move forward, and I would look forward to entertaining them as the chairman or the representative to the TDC. So that is my motion, is to move forward with Phase 1 of Navarre Park, minus the facility of the not closing the door. We are not closing the door on a Panhandle Butterfly House. I want to make that clear, because that's what it'll come out in social media, okay? But I look forward to working personally with the representatives of the Panhandle Butterfly House as we find a solution for your continued operation.
Would you like to make that motion without objection?
I would like to make that motion without objection, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Cole.
open for comments before we make a final vote. I appreciate the very first time that the new commissioner got to speak for District 4. Believe that for a first comer, you did pretty good. Because I couldn't agree more with everything that was said, including the negativity that I've seen. The negativity that I've seen, and I'm going to tell it like it is, from the Panhandle Butterfly House and some of the comments that I didn't see from the other side of the table, remind me of some of the current elections that we've seen recently. When you can't get a leg up on your opponent, let's kick them under the table. And that's not the way we should operate in Santa Rosa County. So it gives me pause to want to continue, as Commissioner Parker said, to hold up my end of the comment that I would fund the Butterfly House wherever it is. I'm not taking that off the table, but it sure gives me a pain in my stomach to hear the negativity that we've heard and seen on social media from a group that got pulled into this. They didn't come knocking at our door and saying, hey, we want the Butterfly House, we want the Butterfly House, but nor did the Butterfly House come to us and say, hey, we want a whole brand new park in Navarre, so that's on us. as a Board of Commissioners for moving forward with that. We owe it to our administrator, and I support 100% giving him an answer today as to, I believe Commissioner Peach put it a good way, leave that piece of property vacant, move forward with the plan. I support that. I will support the Panhandle Butterfly House in funding once they come up with a business plan that was explained from Commissioner Peach as being substantial. But one caveat I would like to add that since, and we've separated, I mean, I'm separating both entities now, so this comments has nothing to do with any of the taxpayers' funds going to the Butterfly House, but I would like to see the animal rescue, slipped my mind for a minute, I'd like to see Mr. Anderson and the Wildlife Refuge put an application in as soon as possible to the TDC and get on record, get on that, so we can support that entity. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to fund this one, but these guys already got so much ahead. You're going to keep your doors open. I think we owe it to him and that group to at least entertain sooner rather than later a request from them, because certainly I've been there, I've seen what it does for tourism and the development that can be achieved down there, I think. So that's kind of my comments in a nutshell, that, you know, I agree 100% too that these, you know, once this egg's cracked, you can't put it back together, so Humpty Dumpty ain't getting back on the ball again between the two. So let's put that to bed and move forward and keep building Santa Rosa County.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Salter.
Mr. Chairman, you don't have to put the 2-minute clock on me. I won't be that long. I just want to say that it's bad that the merger won't work, but I understand why. I'm willing to direct each group to go forward, and I wish y'all both well. Going back to a meeting several months ago, and I'm glad Commissioner Peach said what he did, my vote was to support Phase 1 of the master plan for the Navarre Park, not the entire plan, but Phase 1. And I also said I support the Butterfly House, and I continue to do that today. So I'm ready to move each entity in their own direction, and hope y'all will find peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Salter. Commissioner Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with what Commissioner Salter said, and also the comments made by Commissioner Peach and the others before. Unfortunately, I think that the Panhandle Butterfly House, to a large extent, was the victim of a park plan that took on a life of its own. And that's again, that is very unfortunate. But I hope we can come to a resolution in the future that supports the Butterfly House and gives you an alternative down there. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lynchard. And hearing, apologize. hearing nobody against it, that item will move to Thursday's consent agenda. Commissioner Peach's motion. With that, it is right at 10:50. I would ask that we take a 10-minute break and re-adjourn at 11 o'clock. Thank you so much. We're going to call the meeting back to order. Move to item number 13, Floridatown Park. Archeology monitoring has taken a bit more time than had been expected. It's there in your backup. The administrator recommend that we increase the project budget by $20,540 to cover those archaeology costs for the monitoring, and the source of the funding would be reserved for contingencies. Hearing no discussion, I move that to Thursday's consent agenda for approval. Item number 14 is the Fidelis Park Recreation Improvements and Community Center Assessment. This is discussion of approval of task order number 2 with Mott McDonald under a master services agreement for the design of park improvements associated with an anticipated land and water conservation fund grant and survey and assessment work associated with the historic community center structure there. Recommendation is for the board approval in the amount of $55,255 for those improvements, services, and $37,410 for the community center assessment services, and authorize chairman to execute all related documents. If anybody's got any comments, or Commissioner Salter or the administrator?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I met with Sheila Fitzgerald last week to talk about the project. I totally support it. Thank you.
Thank you. I would recommend moving this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection. Hearing none, it's moved. Item number 15, I'm going to ask Dan to take it away. It's the street lighting policy.
So this is one we've had a couple of requests recently. One we've specifically included in the backup for your reference, where we have a request for public for lighting for safety along our roads. In this case, this is one that doesn't fit into a neighborhood. There's not an HOA. It's public right of way. It's a heavily foot trafficked area. And when you look at the cost, it's rather minimal from a cost perspective, but my concern is just that this would set a precedent, and so I want to make sure that we have some parameters and measurements and a procedure to go through, similarly like we have traffic calming procedure that Public Works manages that program for us. I would like to put together a work group on the staff. I'm just looking for any input from the board, from the commissioners on your thoughts, if it's worth doing. I think this would allow us to entertain these requests that come from outside of neighborhoods, outside of HOAs, where we don't have anybody to go to, something that we'll have to handle from a public policy perspective, put together a procedure and bring that back to you in January. I'm not asking for funding of this approval that's in the backup. It's provided there as an example as far as what something like this would cost in this small area.
Thank you, Dan. Does anybody else have any comments, or
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Peach and then Commissioner Letcher?
Just as the new guy and seeing a lot of lighting requests, I agree with that because I think we owe it to the citizens to be clear on our lighting proposal, so I think it's a good proposal.
Thank you, Commissioner Letcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we do have a lot of requests like this that come in. One that we've gotten that we share is 399, request for lighting along 399. I'm hesitant to go down this road of really opening up the process for the county taking over, installing, and maintaining street lighting, because it is, every street in the county is going to need lights all of a sudden. So we have the MSBU process in place. That doesn't have to come out of an HOA or anything like that. So as you move forward in this review, I would lean on some type of MSBU process to support the funding, because even if we limit it to areas around parks or areas where there are sidewalks, there are going to be a lot of areas in the county that would be eligible. So I think having some sort of MSBU process in place to fund this, where the residents participate, would be the best direction.
Thank you, Commissioner Lynchard. Commissioner Cole.
Thank you. And I agree with that MSBU idea. I would just like to make sure that in areas where it's a commercial business, i.e. Bell Lane, where people are walking to Walmart, walking to them, that they get to share in the love. So,
thank you. I sort of, I guess, am a in-betweener. probably the two views. I know we've had Sean and Sheila and Erica work extensively on coming up with some bike ped plans for Navarre and for Pace and Pea Ridge, and I think, and that was why Dan used this as an example in this strip of road to try to increase safety for pedestrians. Well over $250,000. I think it was about $350-something thousand to build a sidewalk, but when you think about $52 a month for lighting, that seems minimal. And I'm going to say collector roads, arterial roads, some areas, I think it would be good to have some leeway to where the board staff could look at certain things and say, does it meet this criteria to sort of filter out a lot? And then maybe it collectively, if it was a small amount, and I only use this as a point of reference, if collectively, if it was $10,000 a year or something countywide, it truly could save a life. I was driving home the other night, it actually scared me. There was a car in front of me, and it swerved right at the last minute. It's dark, there's no lighting, and it was on an arterial roadway, and then boom, right there, two bicyclists. And, it's unfortunate, and I can tell you as previous law enforcement that the majority of bicyclists are not following the bicycle laws that say you got to have a flashing light. And it scared me because not only did I not want to hit them, and I had my kids in the car, but I also thought, God forbid, any one of us driving a car that did it as an accident, you not only have to live with that, but then you also have to face the potential, civil actions that would come of, oh my God, you struck a motorist that was in the roadway and you didn't see him at nighttime. So, if it means saving a life and it's a few $1,000s on the overall scheme, I'd be interested to see what staff comes up with. So, I would recommend that we at least allow staff to go back, create a work group, within the next few months and come back to us and say, here's some suggestions we have, or at least allow us to look at it from that. But if nobody else has any further comments, I would make that motion without objection to allow staff to review it.
Yes, sir, we don't need any, I don't think any formal action on Thursday. I'll take it from here, and we'll put a group together and bring back some of those things to include not just the criteria, but also the funding options that Commissioner Lynchard raised.
Thank you, Dan. Number 16 is the R&B Investments Agreement. This has to do with the Pea Ridge Connector Road right-of-way. This is the discussion of the agreement with R&B Investments for the conveyance of 39.7 acres for the construction of a public road. Roy, you want to comment on that for the board?
This agreement has been worked out with the various owners, new owners, and has been reviewed by engineering. It's got a pretty fast turnaround on the construction for the road, which is essentially our only concern in regard to it. But we think we can do it within the time frame that we've been able to negotiate.
Thank you, Roy. And I guess my only question I'll ask just to wrap it up would be to Roger. I know we've had the discussion offline, not necessarily recently, but just to make sure I know once we go with this agreement that the 80 feet we feel like will be sufficient for what we need to do. I'm getting ahead 9. Yeah, we're good with that. Okay. All right. Well, I would recommend that we move this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection. Hearing none, it's passed. Number 17 is designation of interim county extension director. And this is a discussion of designated John Atkins as the interim county extension director to fill the place that will be created at the end of the month through retirement. Dan?
Yes, sir. The University of Florida IFAS Regional Director, Dr. Pete Vergat, contacted me. We've advertised for a replacement for our county extension director several times. The university is still trying to get together a pool of applicants, 4 to 6. Each time we've only had each time we've only had 2 applicants. And so this is the third open period of advertisement for our county extension director. With Mike Donahoe's retirement, we'll talk about that a little bit on Thursday again, and you all went to the event they had up there at the extension. We need an interim county extension director. This is to make sure that we have leadership in place while we complete this hiring process, while the University of Florida completes the hiring process. And again, I'm tied with Dr. Vergat on those reviews and with that recommendation that will eventually come to the board for approval of hiring a new extension director. This covers us in the meantime.
Thank you, Dan. And I just want to say, I had the opportunity with my fellow commissioners to attend that retirement party, and it was just tremendous, the things that Mr. Donahoe's colleagues had to say about him. And not just that, but the farmers that grab your arm and pull you aside and say, hey, you better make sure we have a choice in who's taking this man's spot. And it was tremendous. I would hope that after a substantial amount of time in a career of any field, you could only hope to be spoke as well of as Mike Donahoe was. So we'll move that to Thursday's consent agenda.
Sure.
Sorry, Commissioner Cole.
Thank you. Dan, this has never occurred before. How much leverage does this board have in that hiring process?
The board has final approval on the recommendation from the University of Florida for hiring the county extension director.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move that to Thursday's consent agenda, and then Dan, I will let you take your the add-on items number 18, 19, and 20.
Yes, sir. First is a personnel request. In this last budget cycle, and I know we're only one quarter into this fiscal year, we discussed adding personnel to the grants department staff due to some of the additional requirements we were looking at applying for grants, and maybe in the transportation area with build and infra federal level grants. In the end, we decided not to add that person. It wasn't included in the budget requests. What has been happening in conjunction with that is economic development and numerous economic development opportunities that Shannon and his department are pursuing right now. Many of those are tied to grant opportunities. So I've asked Ms. Gran-Cagnolo, she's working with Shannon on those grant opportunities, and her time is almost now, by de facto, shared 50-50 with economic development and grants. It's grants-related stuff, Triumph Grant being a big one for Whiting Aviation Park, Triumph Grant for the industrial park at I-10, as well as Florida Job Growth Grant funds, EDA grants that we'll be pursuing to support an opportunity that Shannon is working now, as well as CDBG grants. So I think there's an opportunity here to keep the synergy we have going with economic development and grants by sharing Erica's time between the two departments. She will maintain her restore grant responsibilities and then support Commissioner Lynchard and the consortium, as well as processing and submitting Pot 1 grant applications. But then we need to support, I think, Sheila and her department with an additional body. There is no fiscal impact this year because of the additional electric franchise fee that was processed at our last board meeting. Jane gave you a report on that. Each of you got additional money in your district rec funds from that. Shannon also got additional money in economic development from those additional electric franchise fees, and that will help, that will offset the cost of this additional body. So I'm requesting the staff, or the board, to approve one additional staff billet for this year, and we'll probably won't fill that with the holidays until February or March, but we want to go ahead and begin advertising that position.
Hearing no discussion, I would make the motion that we approve that as requested and move that to Thursday's consent agenda, and look forward to Erica keeping Shannon straight, and I think it'll be a great asset to the team. So thank y'all so much for what you do for us every day.
The second, the number 19, is to seek board approval to advertise for a revision to the golf cart ordinance in the Tiger Point area. We've had several requests from individual citizens as well as some HOAs down there to look at the area where golf carts are authorized. Commissioner Lynchard asked, he supports that and asked that we put that on to get the approval. We would have that public hearing then in January, but we need the board's approval to advertise for a revision.
Just a quick question. Do we have golf cart ordinances for just those areas, or is there a county-wide one? Because there's a lot of use out on the beach as well.
We have to under state law, we have to specify individual streets to make them golf cart friendly. Roy can correct me for anything I'm saying wrong. And in Tiger Point, we have streets here and there that have been so designated, but not the community as a whole. And so that's what we're cleaning up. If there are any other streets that you feel need to be named, Hidden Creek would. I don't know that we named any streets in Hidden Creek as golf cart friendly.
Yeah, if we could.
And it's normally not an issue, but it has been in the last 3-4 months down in Tiger Point. So I'd like to move forward with designating those streets But yeah, I think Hidden Creek would be a natural one as well.
Awesome, thanks for that. And yeah, I'd like to get smart if there are any in our district, because I know there's issues out on the beach and in some other areas, but I don't want to hold up your progress, so if we
If the
could just
board,
get staff.
just let us know what we'd want to put into the advertising, we can do that. The ordinance we have in place has countywide jurisdiction, but we do have to designate each street.
Mr. Chairman, golf carts, I believe, are allowed on Navarre Beach by ordinance, and these are street legal golf carts, so I believe they're already included.
I'll provide that, what we have on the books for your information. If we need to include that in the advertisement, we will.
Perfect, thanks.
All right, hearing no further discussion, I'd recommend we move that to Thursday's consent agenda.
Then the last additional item, number 20, we provided a copy on each of your desks. Career Source Escarosa, Ms. Reberg contacted us for an appointment. Ms. Tawana Gilbert to the Career Source Escarosa Board of Directors. That information is included in the what was on your desk there. Would ask the board's approval of that appointment.
Hearing no discussion, we'll move that to Thursday's consent agenda, and that will conclude the admin committee, and it's my pleasure now to have Commissioner Salter take over for Economic Development Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I ask Shannon to come forward, talking about golf carts, if I had one on Shamuckla Highway, it'd have to be able to go 65 miles an hour. Mr. Chairman, I have two items under economic development. First one is discussion of approval of agreement with the University of West Florida Small Business Development Center for the Santa Rosa Business Ombudsman Program. Information is in the back of your material. Shannon, you want to give us a brief overview?
Yes, sir. Thank you all for allowing us to bring this opportunity to the board. This is a first that we are looking at for Northwest Florida. This is a program where I come from a family of small business, and working with small business, we understand just the processes it takes to go through to actually establishing a business in any given jurisdiction. With the help of Kelly Massey and his staff of Krista Wilson, we've developed an MOU where, as Commissioner Salter described, a ombudsman program where Jane Doe can come to our office and set up an appointment with Krista to walk through these steps of establishing a business in Santa Rosa County. We've gone through, I've taken Krista, we've met with Stan Nichols, we've met with the various county offices, the chambers, to get the word out there that if you want to open a new business in Santa Rosa County, or if you want to reuse a piece of property, come to Krista, and she'll walk you through that process. She'll know who to go to in Stan Nichols' office. She will work with Donna Tucker or Tamara at the Navarre Chamber to identify those small businesses that when they need help, instead of just going out there in the system and trying to determine which way to go, Krista and her staff, or the Small Business Development Center, would take them down that direct path and will help speed up that process of establishing here in Santa Rosa County. With all that said, I'd like to introduce Kelly Massey with the Small Business Development Center and Krista Wilson with SBDC. Come on upstairs. To just kind of introduce them and let them further describe it. Kelly, all yours. Thank you.
Hey guys, I'm Kelly Massey. Thank you, commissioners, for allowing me to come up and speak for just a second. The first thing I wanted to talk to you about is kind of second what Shannon said, is this is something new for this region. So the Florida Small Business Development Center at UWF covers 10 counties, basically the central time zone of Florida. And so our offices go from Pensacola to Port St. Joe up to Mariana. And I'd like to share with you, I've been in Port St. Joe for about the last 2 months. Anybody want to guess what I've been doing? Yeah, lots of hurricane disaster loans. I'll talk to you about that in just a second. But this is a new type of partnership with a county in our 10-county region. Now, some other counties in Florida are doing this with the local SBDCs. but Santa Rosa County is the first one, so we're very excited, and I appreciate you guys for being kind of the thought leaders and helping your area businesses grow and succeed. Before I go into a little bit more about the agreement, and I'll try to be brief. I know you guys have a lot to do. I did want to share with you real quickly for those of you who do not know exactly what the Florida Small Business Development Center does and how long we've been around. So about 44 years ago, there was a pilot program done. UWF applied for a grant for this pilot program. It was not called the SBDC at that time, but UWF was one of, I believe, 7 locations in the United States that got this grant, which is what is now known as the SBDC. It was actually housed at Eglin Air Force Base. As of right now in the state of Florida, we have about 250 staff members, nine regions throughout the state of Florida, and nationwide have several, a few thousand staff. We are designated by the state of Florida as their business assistance provider. And just to let you know, we're funded partially by the Small Business Administration, Defense Logistics Agency, the state of Florida, and of course the universities that house us. What we typically do, well, let me go back. So we have office location in Pensacola, Fort Walton, and Panama City, and outreach locations now, of course, in Milton, Crestview, Navarre, and Destin. And so 2 locations now in Santa Rosa County. For those of you who are familiar with the Navarre Chamber, you might have seen on the newsletter there's this thing called Ask Adam now, and so we have our one of our consultants, Adam, goes there once a week, basically to do the same thing in the Navarre area that Crystal will be doing here in Milton. Anybody got a snazzy name that we could? I'm thinking Call Krista. We got Ask Adam, we'll do Call Krista. I think it'll be very good. And the response that we've had with Ask Adam so far has been very, very good. So what do we do? What we typically do is help businesses, people that want to start businesses and entrepreneurs start that business. Well, what goes into starting a business? First thing you probably need to do, is it even feasible for you to do in the first place? How can we maximize your chances for success? And statistics show that businesses that work with SBDC are far likely to be around 5 years from now than if they don't. We have people that have certain expertise. So I have 10 consultants throughout the region, the 10-county region, so basically 1 consultant per county, if you will, that have certain experience. Some have experience in accounting, some have experience in HR, government contracting. This last year, just in our 10-county region, we helped business owners get $77 million in government contracting. Some of you guys may have heard of this old lady that used to work for me, Laura Subel. She's been around for many, many years, retired. I believe she was in her 80s when she retired. Helped area businesses in this area with over $1 billion in government contracts. So that's just government contracting. That's not helping people get loans, expand their business, help them figure out, why they're not making as much money as they thought they would make. We also help with business outreach. If you want to add onto your business, we can help you determine, ways to make sure, do I need to add that second shift? Do I need to buy those pieces of equipment? And we have lots of resources available to us if you want to start or grow your business. I can tell you, if you want to start a tire store in Milton, how much you're going to make in that tire store and what your gross profit's going to be and what your net profit's going to be, because we have access to databases that we spend a lot of money. Everything I've just said, how much does that cost the person that comes and sees us? 0. And we want to keep it that way. And so I'm very excited about this partnership. Just to elaborate a little bit more on the partnership itself, again, we're going to have Krista here at least once a week to be available to help your area businesses and entrepreneurs who want to start business hands-on, navigate through all aspects of doing what they need to do, whether it's navigating through getting the proper permits and who to talk to, that's the easy stuff for us. It's, okay, now how do we help you market that business? How do we help you e-market that business? How do we help you do QuickBooks for your business? Now, I want to say, we're not going to do people's taxes and stuff. We're not going to step on the toes of the CPAs and the other business professionals in the area, but we do offer a lot of services at no cost that will help the business make sure how to watch their money and things like that as well. So we're doing accounting, HR, marketing, all the business fundamental things of that nature. I think we have a common mission with the economic development agencies, and I like to consider us the kind of the business retention and expansion arm, if you will, of the economic development agencies. One thing I'd like to do is, once we get this rolling, is come back and report to you. This is where we were at before we were heavily involved in Santa Rosa County, and this is where we're at, 6 months from now, a year from now, and show you guys, what a difference it's going to make to help people navigate. Another thing that we tend to do is help the bankers in the area and their clients with loan packaging. You can understand that businesses are trying to run their business, but they're also trying to grow. If we can help them do their business plan and financials and loan packaging, it speeds up the process. And that's just another example that we can help things happen a little bit quicker with the banks. And if it's an SBA loan, we can help with those things. So I guess I've elaborated a little bit enough about what we do and what you can expect. I guess before I turn it over to Krista to introduce herself and her background. But Krista, by the way, lives in Gulf so she does live in the county and has a lot of business experience that I think will be relevant. Any questions that I can answer for you about what we intend to do or anything I forgot, Shannon? Yeah. All right.
I'll just say this, I don't have a question, but I think it's a good fit with the Economic Development Organization. We've frequently talked about what we can do to better promote our small businesses and give them better opportunities, so I think this is a good fit.
Thank you. I agree. All right. I'm going to turn it over to Krista and let her talk a little bit about herself. I think she's one of my stars, relatively new with the organization, but definitely not new to owning businesses and navigating a lot of the aspects. So Krista, I'll leave it with you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I will make this short and sweet. I just want to make sure you know who I am. My name is Krista Wilson. And as Kelly said, I have been with the SBDC a pretty short time. I came on earlier this year, but I have owned my own businesses for many years. I have started them. I have very specifically spent a lot of my time in cell phone stores. So I have opened stores, I've closed stores, I've sold a lot of them. Had one here in Pace, so I'm very familiar with the ins and outs of opening and navigating through business. I've worked in several counties throughout the state and also in other states in that business. And the one thing I can tell you about Santa Rosa County is it's always been very friendly to do business. So my mission here is to continue that tradition and just make sure that the people that come across my path have as good of an experience as I have in navigating through business. With the knowledge I already I just want to hold their hand and help them with it. So if I can be any service to you all, just let me know, but I look forward to the mission. Thanks.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Any comments by the board?
Any questions?
Commissioner Parker?
Just thank you for what you're doing, and I think this will go right in line with the project me and Shannon have been working on that he's going to bring forward next year about sort of in line with a facade grant type issue that we can further help those existing businesses. And I would love to take your positive attitude and send you down to our building permit department sometimes, because sometimes those business owners do tend to struggle with the process, and I think we usually get phone calls with it. So look forward to hearing your help.
I've been there, right, Shannon? So. Yeah, I've met them, so we're well on our way with holding hands with them too.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Shannon.
Mr. Chairman, there'll be a $10,000 budget impact. So at this time, I would move to execute the MOU agreement to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Thank you. Number 2, discussion of approval of subordination of mortgage for JCK Enterprises Incorporated, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Information's in the back of the material. Roy?
We're just subordinating to United Bank's mortgage.
Any comments by the board? Mr. Chairman, I would recommend moving this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my report.
Roger, engineer's report.
Good morning. Our first item is a discussion of a quote for the required beach tilling of the Navarre Beach Dune Restoration Project from Advantage Construction, including the mob and demob of $32.82, and then the tilling price of $300 an acre. Santa Rosa County completed our second dune restoration project in 2016. Part of our permit requirement that is going to be cost shared with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection is that we have to till that beach to ensure it's fluff for our sea turtles. This will be the second of 3. We'll be coming back again next year with the same request. And we're recommending award and placing this item on the consent agenda.
Move it to Thursday's consent agenda.
Item number 2 is a discussion of the Navarre Beach Lift Station number 6 rehabilitation. We completed lift station number 7 last year, and this is another one that's in state of disrepair and undersized to meet current requirements. We have negotiated a task order with CH2M Hill Jacobs in the not to exceed amount of $169,000, and these funds were budgeted in this year's budget and will come from the Navarre Beach Reserve, utility reserve, I should say.
Recommend moving that to Thursday's consent agenda.
Item number 3 is a discussion of the preliminary plat for Miller Spring, a 479-lot subdivision, public subdivision located in District 3. It's gone through our review process, and staff recommends approval of preliminary plat.
Move that to Thursday's consent agenda.
Item number 5 is a discussion of a lease agreement with Thompson Cat as the lowest price proposal meeting specifications for a 730C articulated dump truck with a 6,000-hour, $4,872.13 per month, 48-month lease term to be utilized at the central landfill for hauling cover, material, and soil. This will be this will replace our current leased agreement, which we have found to be a very effective use and ensures that we have reliable, consistent operations at the landfill 6 days a week, 10 hours a day.
Thank you. We'll move that to Thursday's consent agenda. And will you grab number 4, Roger?
Did I skip 4? I apologize, gentlemen.
That's all right. We forgive you.
Good. I need my glasses, I guess. Item number 4 is a discussion of the award of the Peter Prince Field Continuing Engineering Services contract to Mac McDonald. Mott McDonald has been working with Santa Rosa County since 2011. Our funding agencies have asked that we go out for a continuing contract, and we're just meeting the requirements to be eligible for FAA and FDOT grants at Peter Prince Airport. They were the only submitting firm, and we're recommending a negotiation of a contract with Mott McDonald.
We'll move that to Thursday's consent agenda. Thank you for being here today as well.
And finally, item number 6 is a discussion of the countywide NPDES, that's National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, MS4s, which is Municipal Separate Storm Sewer Systems, 5-year permit. The renewal fee is $11,700, and we're asking the board approval to expend that as it exceeds the administrator's $10,000 current cap.
We will move that to Thursday's consent agenda, and thank you so much, Roger, for that report. And next, we've got Commissioner Cole with our Public Services Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a moment, please. Public Service Committee, item number 1 is 2018 Affordable Housing Incentive and Renewal Recommendation Report. This is a discussion of this report as recommended by the Affordable Housing Authority Committee. We got the backup in your agenda. Is there any questions on that item? If not, I'll move it to consent agenda on Thursday.
So moved.
Item 2 is Transportation Alternative Program Grant Application. This grant application went in for Panhandle Trail Bike Lanes in Navarre. FDOT also required resolutions of continued support for the Tom King Bayou Project, Henry Street Connector, and the Old Baghdad Highway Parkmore Plaza sidewalks. Again, this is all in your backup, and just another good reason to intensify the staffing in our grant department. So if any other comments or questions? Seeing none, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that to the consent agenda on Thursday.
So moved.
Item 3, fire apparatus purchase for Skyline, East Milton, and Allentown. This discussion is for item number 1 is E1 commercial 3,500 gallon tanker to Sunbelt Fire in the amount of 359.
Should be 359,000. It's correct in the.
That must be a little model.
We're going to get a dozen of them at that price, sir.
All right, correct that, please, sir. $359,000 for this tank truck, okay. Item 2 is quick attach mount on a Ford 550 to Sunbelt Fire in the amount of $206,620. And item 3 is Pierce mini pumper to 10-8 Fire in the amount of $233,564.89. Any questions, comments? This has all been approved by the chief's group, and move that to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
All right. And I guess I need to read this in the all recommendations are based on the Houston-Galveston Area Council H-GAC contract, Florida Statute 12-17. So that's on record. Item 4, fire department purchases is through lost funds. This is a discussion of approval to purchase fire department equipment from Motorola Solutions, 10-8 Fire, and the Firefighting Depot at a total cost of $30,818.20. And that breakdown is also in your backup. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll move it to consent agenda on Thursday without objection.
So moved.
Item 5 is scuba purchase or lost funds, discussion of approval to reimburse Holly Navarre Fire District for purchase of self-contained breathing apparatus, equipment from Municipal Emergency Services at a total cost of $44,999 based on a lower than state contract pricing. Move that to Thursday without objection.
So moved.
Item 6, Herald Volunteer Fire Department applications and additions for 2018. This is a discussion of approval to award a bid to alter and add to the Herald Volunteer Fire Department station located at 6001 Miller Bluff Road in Milton to Empire Builders Group in the amount of $187,456. And if there's no comments or questions?
Sir, just if I could here, I wanted to make sure the board was aware. This was on the LOST list, but it was only budgeted at about $70,000. We've bid this twice. We've tried it several different ways. This is the best price we can get. So we're going to augment that initial lost approval with $50,000 from lost, and then the fire department executive group will budget for the other $50,000 out of their MSBU funds.
Okay. All right. And that's a great little volunteer fire department out there. Good to have them on that end of the county. So, any other comments, questions? I'll move that to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Item 7 is one that I added on here. This is the I-10 construction project and discussion of that project and its impacts. I just felt like it was, I don't know about the rest of you, but I use that corridor quite a bit going to work and back and forth. So does family members use that corridor. And to say none the least, I think it's an embarrassment on how long it's taken and how haphazardly they've redirected traffic without, I think, good conscience of safety for the citizens, not only of Santa Rosa County, but citizens passing through our county, visitors, and I think that's reflected in the amount of accidents we've seen out there. So I would like to maybe draft a letter if we feel it's necessary, or at least correspond with the District 3 FDOT and let them know that, you know, we want to know some timelines. We want to know some truths. So last TPO meeting, think the one before last, I asked the FDOT representative, when was the expected completion date? We were told at the end of October. We go by there on a daily basis and see one or two people out there working on basically, 2 or 3 miles of project. I think with as late as it's been in and the problems we've had, there should be crews out there 24/7 getting that project done and doing something a little better to make it happen. We don't know the inside workings or what's happened, what the contract is on it, whether or not FDOT's approaching the contractor for going over time. I'd just like to get some explanations, but more so put this out today to let our citizens know that this board's not just sitting here ignoring what's happening out there and not paying attention to the safety of our citizens. The other thing I thought about doing is even asking them for some reimbursement for the accidents we've had to respond to out there because of the delays. When our sheriff has to go out there, our first responders have to go out there, that's an additional burden on the taxpayers of Santa Rosa County that if they were holding up their end of the bargain and getting this finished, we wouldn't have to be paid for. Sure, there's going to be accidents along I-10 we're going to respond to, but are there more so right now? I think it's fair to assume that there are more happening now, again, because of the haphazard way that they're going about completing this project. And at least an explanation of what's going on and why it's going on, and I think is due to our citizens. So I'll just throw that out there, see if how the rest of the members of the board feel about it. So.
I'll just comment, I know it has actually caused a lot of work on this board. I mean, the Indian Bayou issue with the sediment runoff was clearly over DOT construction. That's been proven. There was a lot of issues, and you still got the same project still ongoing. I know in my district, as well as Commissioner Cole and really Commissioner Salter's districts that all funnel in to Avalon Boulevard, this board, and I think Commissioner Cole championed getting that expansion. But I promise you, if you go out there any morning, traffic's backed up far over a mile, and they're actually backed up on Avalon, waiting to queue into the interstate due to the construction. So I know that's affecting quality of life for folks. So I would support any initiative you had to let DOT know that we would like to see this wrap up. Anything they could do to help the citizens.
Okay. All right. Well, Mr. Chairman, I'll just make a motion then that it can go on the consent agenda. We have staff through Roy, I guess, draft a letter for the chairman to sign and get us a good explanation. And we have our transportation guru coming up here, so maybe he can answer some of these for us. So.
Mr. Chairman, just a reminder that the Florida-Alabama TPO meeting will be Wednesday at 9 o'clock, and I think this would be an excellent opportunity to discuss that with them. And I'll give our DOT liaison, Mr. Bryant Polk, a heads up that it's coming, and so hopefully he'll have some information. And then it may be a request of the Florida-Alabama TPO to go back to the secretary to make that request as well.
Okay. All right. I'd be willing to hold off on my motion until after that TPO meeting. If we get some good firm answers and some commitments from them, then I'm good with that. So we can bring those answers back to the board or back to the meeting for the public to know too.
And Commissioner Cole, thank you for bringing that up. I think it would be nice to have some answers and see that project move forward. Since we're talking about the TPO meeting, I wanted to let the board know I'm not going to be there on Wednesday. I have another engagement that I have to take care of. But we do have on the work program in 2020 the 6th laning of Highway 98 in Gulf Breeze from Portside Drive to Naval Live Oaks. So we've been asking for that for years, and it is in the work program for funding and construction in 2020, which is just over a year away. So that is very good news, very exciting for the south end of the county. So I look forward to
So what you're
to seeing
saying
that
is
approved.
don't step on her toes too hard.
Wait till the next round of meetings to send that letter.
Well, and on the same token, we don't want to see the same thing happen on 98.
No, we don't. You're
You know,
absolutely correct. We have an interest, and all of our residents have an interest in seeing these projects move along as quickly as possible with a minimal disruption to daily life. But it's an exciting meeting. I wish I was going to be able to be there, so thank you.
My only other input would be, even if it was just sort of a courtesy letter from the board, it may not be necessary before TPO, but afterwards, to show the board support is sort of a cursory. I know we all have great relationships with our state representatives and our senator in the area, but I guess sometimes just so that maybe they have something tangible to go back to Tallahassee. They obviously have a lot more influence over DOT than we do, so that may be something we could consider in the future is, maybe just letting them know, hey, look, guys, we still need your help to champion accountability, I think is really all we're asking for. But if I heard Commissioner Cole right, we're just going to hold off until Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the only other thing on Avalon is when they do complete that project, I'd like to see some consideration of moving Avalon Boulevard from, let's say, Cyanamide Boulevard to the Moors to 55 mile an hour instead of 45 through that area, but certainly not until the I-10 project's finished. So.
Thank you. And, all right, so we're done with that one. We'll
Yes.
dispose of this. Okay, so no action on item number 7. Thank you, Commissioner Cole. And now we have Public Works Committee, Commissioner Lyncher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 1 is discussion of a request from Ventura Estates for reduction of the speed limit in the subdivision to 20 miles per hour and for the installation of a 3-way stop condition at the intersection of Gettysburg Boulevard and Wilmington Way. So Public Works has no objection to this request. According to the backup, would cause for the replacement and addition of 2 stop signs. Impact would be negligible. Any questions, comments from the board? Mr. Furman, anything other than what's in the backup? Okay. Then I would move this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Item 2, similar request, discussion of approval of request from the HOA of the Meadows for 3 new 3-way stop intersections along Misty Meadows Lane. Public Works has no objections to this request. This would add 6 additional stop signs. The cost impact would be minimal. Unless there are any questions, I would move this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Item 3 is District 4 road paving. Discussion of approval for the resurfacing of the following roads in District 4 with gas tax and LOST funding. The recommended LOST funding list is in the agenda, totals $249,000. The recommended gas tax list likewise is in the agenda and totals $255,000. Any questions about these projects? If not, I would move these to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Item 4, discussion of approval of the execution of the 2016 agreement with Bobcat of Pensacola for the buyback of 2 used Bobcat compact track loaders and the purchase of 2 new Bobcat compact track loaders with extended warranties at a total cost of $30,045.36 based on the Sourcewell NJPA pricing. Unless there are any questions, I'll move this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Item 5, discussion of approval to purchase 2 Class 7 dump trucks and 7 Class 8 dump trucks from Empire Truck Sales at a total cost of $1,151,762. Any questions or comments on this purchase?
Commissioner Cole.
Thank you.
Commissioner
I'm
Cole.
sorry I left my light on, but do have a question on this one. Through the chair to Stephen, are we trading in trucks, selling trucks?
We will be replacing trucks once we get the new trucks in. These will take a number of months to be manufactured and shipped to us, but yes, sir, we would be putting old trucks out for auction.
Auction, okay. Not trade-in, though.
That's correct. The trucks will be auctioned.
All right, thank you.
Any additional questions? I will move this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Item 6, discussion of approval to resurface the following primary roads utilizing gas tax funding at a cost of approximately $1,500,000. This is Ardfield Road, East River Road, Market Road, Highway 87A, Old Highway 90, Pine Level Church Road, and Spring Hill Road. Any questions or comments? I have a comment. It's good to see that we're making some headway on resurfacing throughout the county. This is a great way to end 2018 with $1.5 million worth of resurfacing these primary roads. And that's made available through the gas tax and the additional funding we've had through the LOST that the citizens approved a few years ago. And Stephen, I appreciate all the work that your department has done putting these funds to work and making improvements that are tangible and that make a difference to people every day when they drive in Santa Rosa County. So with that said, I'll move this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Item 7, discussion of approval to purchase a new Cabelco SK140SR tracked excavator from Cowan Equipment Company, Inc. at a cost of $146,225, utilizing the Florida Sheriff's Association pre-bid contract pricing. Any questions or comments on this? If not, I'll move this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Item 8, discussion of approval to purchase a wheeled loader from Beard Equipment Company at a cost of $181,947.12, utilizing the Sourcewell contract pricing agreement. If there are no questions, I'll move this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Item 9, discussion of approval to purchase a crane from Cowan Equipment Company at a cost of $185,836, utilizing the Sourcewell contract pricing agreement. If there are no questions, I'll move this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved. I'll just add, I couldn't help but think it is a great way to end 2018, but it also seems like Stephen kind of loaded his Christmas list on this on this agenda. But I know even on that rubberized tire front end loader, I made the comments. It's extremely helpful for after storm cleanup. Hopefully we'll never need it here, but I appreciate seeing you get the equipment in there, so that's a move.
I would just add, along with the increase in asphalt and road resurfacing that the local option sales tax has allowed, a lot of this equipment that you just approved is with local option sales tax. It's with a mix, but without the local option sales tax, we wouldn't be able to purchase this new equipment, which is critically needed for the Public Works Department.
Make sure it gets that big half penny stuck on it beside the county logo.
Absolutely. All right, item 10 is discussion of approval of change order number 2 from Piney Grove Nursery for Phase 1 of the Highway 87 South Landscape Project in the amount of $8,850. Funding will come from the FDOT project grant. Public Works recommends approval of this change order. And again, there are no fiscal impacts to the county because all funding is coming from the FDOT grant. Any questions or comments? If not, I'll move this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Lynchard. Next, we have the Budget and Financial Management Committee. Commissioner Peach, and no pressure, we gave you the longest committee agenda items there.
Well, I was going to yield to my alternate since he's ran this one, and I'm not quite sure, but I will read through all of these. And I believe when you get to the budget amendments, have I seen you just do a block approval of those, Commissioner Lynchard? Okay. Item number 1, public assistance agreements, is discussion of the public assistance agreements for the following entities: American Red Cross of Pensacola, Arc Gateway, Avalon Lakeview Center, Clean Community, Early Learning, Community Health of Northwest Florida, Feeding the Gulf Coast, Healthy Start, Interfaith Ministries, Santa Rosa Community Clinics, Council on Aging, and Gulf Coast Kids House. We have all the backup I've reviewed. Move this to Thursday's consent agenda without objections.
So moved.
Item number 2 is HVAC controls. Santa Rosa County Health Department discussion of award for the HVAC controls upgrade at Santa Rosa County Health Department to Johnson Controls as the lowest price qualified bidder meeting specifications. There's no discussion. Move to Thursday's consent agenda.
So moved.
We have a bid item for housing rehabilitation of 6015 Queen Street. Discussion of award for the housing rehabilitation project at 6015 Queen Street to Adam Mott's Construction, Inc. as the lowest price qualified bidder meeting specifications and authorization to exceed program maximum of $35,000. No objection to move this to Thursday's consent agenda?
So moved.
Bid item for housing demolition and reconstruction at 4529 Palm Drive. Discussion of award for the housing ship demolition/reconstruction project at 4529 Palm Drive to Bill Walther Construction, Inc. as the lowest price qualified bidder meeting specifications. Recommend moving this to Thursday's consent agenda.
So moved.
Item number 5 is information only for the fiscal year 2018 budget update.
Yeah, I think that's me.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I'll yield it to you, Jane.
All righty. We just wanted to give you an update on what happened in fiscal year 18, and it's really in much more detail in our budget document that's going to go to press this week that we're sending to the GFOA. But I'll start with the general fund, and our revenues exceeded expenditures by $3.3 million, which of course increased our fund balance. And this is certainly partly due to our lapse rate. However, our state shared revenues were up $534,000 than what the state anticipated. Excess fees from our constitutional officers were up $1.4 million than what we budgeted. Our lease fees were up $520,000 from what we budgeted. And another revenue stream to note that we've not really talked about before, but what is very interesting is the interest that we earn. In fiscal year 2016, we earned $92,000. In 2017, we earned $275,000. And in 2018, we earned $675,000. And the reason for this is that we've been underpaid over the years, and their auditors caught it. So that was some pretty good news for us. So going forward, it looks like, that'll be a pretty hefty revenue stream for us. And
Jane, will you restate which revenue stream that was?
our interest that we earn on
Okay.
our money, on
Okay.
our fund balance. And our half-cent sales tax was down about $145,000 from the state projection, but we did make it up elsewhere. And of course, our expenditures were down from what we budgeted. In our road and bridge fund, our revenues exceeded our expenditures by $1.4 million, although there are several projects that were not concluded that year. In the TDC fund, our revenues were up $350,000, and that was due, of course, to Navarre. However, our expenditures did exceed our revenues because we did pay off that TDC building. Also, we had some good news with our loss fund. That fund, our revenues were up $515,000 from what the state projected. And you know what happened with the electric franchise fees. Those were up $540 and allocated to the various districts and economic development. In the landfill, revenues exceeded expenses by $5 million. We still have the expansion of the cell in the hopper, but we did not draw any funding from our LOC, which we may very well have to do this upcoming year. And in the Navarre Beach Utility Fund, revenues exceeded expenditures by $560,000. And these are just some of the highlights. We did not see any surprising variances. We were on point and we're strong. But one of the things I do want to mention is that we are going to approach the budget a little bit differently this upcoming year. We're going to look to budget more for outcomes, but we'll be talking about that in February at our workshop. But, we're in good shape. So, thought you wanted to see. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jane, when you said that there was the mistake the auditor caught and it was $600,000 in interest, was that playing catch-up, or is that what we can expect annually
Well,
now?
I thought that, when I spoke to finance, that they caught up, but it looks like we're going to be seeing some hefty interest revenue going forward. I'm going to say, I guess, at least $500,000. And we were budgeting at one point just $20,000 a year, and we had looked at it before, and we were curious, but it looks like it all came out in the wash.
Okay, all right, so the new expected amount will be around
I'm guessing at least 500,000, but I only put 218. I didn't know. I was looking back at the 275 we earned in 17, But I think we're going to see some good numbers there.
Okay, good news. And then on the landfill budget, it was $5 million?
Yeah, it was $5 million, but
Okay.
as you know, we increased our tipping fees.
Sure.
And a lot of that money hadn't been spent. We have that project, on the horizon that we've got to pay for.
Well, then, with that knowledge, I'd like to put in a request through the board, see if there's will of the board, to try to move the maintenance building and the other scale forward a little quicker, if that funding would allow. Just, we're buying big dump trucks and a lot of stuff, but there's been a lack, I think, a lot of time. And in the building up front where a household waste goes, or the what am I calling it? The chemicals, hazardous waste and stuff. I think we're way behind on those three items. Basically, we have another scale, that's faster we're getting people running through there, and quicker we're putting dollars in the coffers. So I would like to see those projects, especially that hazardous waste building. Let's get moving on.
I can give you a brief update on those. You want to go ahead and finish, Jane?
I was just going to mention, don't forget those closure costs that we've got to book. So that really gets in the way of what we can do.
Certainly, and a couple of the projects the Commissioner brought up, the household hazardous waste, that there's a building permit being worked right now that'll do that very thing that you described as far as improvements to the HHW. The scale house, that project is in this current year's design budget, and we'll be constructing a new scale house as in addition to a new commercial lane. And also, we've programmed the maintenance out in future years. As we talk about the $5 million, we got a $10 million construction project to which Mr. Sheber referenced our letter of credit that we have not had to draw down on. But we would anticipate spending that $5 million and a portion of the letter of credit this year.
I just, I build things. I've been involved with buying metal buildings. A maintenance facility building and equipping that is not that out of reach for Santa Rosa County. And I think we've made do with what we have for far too long. And it's just, it's a big concern of mine. I guess because I'm in a garage all the time, I know how uncomfortable it can be and how it can be made a lot more comfortable. And when we have dedicated employees working on things like that, it's kind of like when I first got on the board and Public Works didn't have lifts for the trucks. You're a lot more efficient in a comfortable area with the right kind of equipment, regardless of who you are. I mean, if you're in an office and you have an old broke computer, you can't get the job done. And that's what I'm seeing out there, and I'd like to try to move that forward as quickly as we can.
We'll take a look at it, sir. There's obviously a lot of work and construction activity already going on at the landfill, and a lot more planned with the improvements of the additional lane, the additional scale. And it's a matter of prioritization, not necessarily a matter of funding and having that available. But we can look at where it is currently programmed and look at potentially pulling it a little bit forward.
Thanks, Gene. Items, and correct me for procedural, items 6 through 23 are budget amendments. Do we typically read each of those into the record? Or okay. So items 6 through 23 are budget amendments. The backup data is provided. If there's no discussion, I move those to the consent agenda for Thursday. Okay. And the check register, I will review that. I'm sure Jane will coach me along on how to review that and get that to the chairman prior to the end of this, or after the end of this meeting. I do okay there, Commissioner Salty?
I'm good.
That concludes the budget report.
You want to move that, the check register to Thursday's agenda without objection?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Parker's back.
Thank you, Commissioner Peach. That's concluded. I know we've got several people that have sat here very patiently today. Do we have any members of the public that are here to speak on anything that hasn't already been addressed? Yes, sir. If you'll just make your way up, please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name's Lester Zimmerman. I reside at 1671 Champaign Avenue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, county commissioners, county officers, for giving me the opportunity to speak. As Dave Perch said earlier, there's a lot of negative back here. I'm going to swing it where I believe there's some negative up there, but my intentions are to work with the county commissioners, the officers, and eventually come to an agreement on something. I've been blessed that I've been able to own property from Montana east, from the North Shore of the USA to Santa Rosa County. I presently own 4 parcels here, and this is what I plan to pass. Okay? A year ago, approximately a year ago, I purchased a piece of property on Blackjack Circle. In the midst of purchasing it, my realtor called, couldn't get any answers from the court, or from Santa Rosa County. I couldn't get the answers that I wanted, okay? I might say some things might offend some, but I want to discuss these issues and at the end, accomplish some goals. I want to clean up Blackjack Estates and Santa Rosa County. Some of you I have already had phone calls with and I met. Some I discussed the MSBU programs, which I'll talk about later. My mission today would be to talk with the county commissioners and officers about Blackjack Circle Estates, what the property owners were denied, police service, fire service, ambulance service, garbage service. Santa Rosa County sheriffs don't want to come in because it'll make their cars dirty. Garbage service is a health hazard back there. I think in the last month or two they did make some changes, but it's still a health hazard. Fire service, I was told if it rains, they will not bring an engine back in there to help with the fire. I was also told that one time they needed an ambulance in there and they couldn't get it in due to the conditions of the roads. They had to walk the gurney in and the fellow passed. Patient passed. Drug problems. The county is looking the other way. Santa Rosa County is letting their youth exposed to these problems. And if you want more, we can talk about that later. I can tell you all what drugs do to a family. The road coming into Blackjack Circle, I believe it's illegal. When I bought my property, I couldn't get an answer. But I have an easement that says the Blackjack Circle Estates was abolished in 2001. That easement is signed by a vice president of Blackjack Estates. It's dated 2011. Nobody can tell me who authorized the Macadam Road coming in off of 399. I couldn't get an answer anywhere. I believe, and it's only my belief, somebody got their hand greased. The road signs out at the front says Blackjack Circle. If they were bought under a grant, I believe that's illegal also, because as I was told, it's a private road. If it's a private road, maybe the association should be reformed, put up gates, and those people with the new houses would be locked out. Then the county would have a problem. It is my belief, if you want to clean up the county, you don't start at the top. You face the problems at the bottom and make things better and safe for all. I know it may have started years ago before a lot of you were commissioners in the office, okay? What I'm about to say here might offend some of the officers and some of the commissioners, but believe me, Bob, I voted for you. I know you and I battled heads, but I think you're doing your job, and I praise you for that. About a year ago, I tried to get in touch with Mr. Williamson. No return call to this date. I know he's not on the board anymore. Thank you for being here, Dave. I had about 6 or 7 phone calls with Mr. Cole. On the third phone call, he told me he didn't have time. He had problems at his garage with some family issues with the people that work for him. I guess every now and then, everybody has a bad day, and they're entitled to that. On my second last phone call with Mr. Cole, I stated, Bob, this is my 6th or 7th phone call, and you keep lying to me. His response was, and I quote, "Fuck you."
Hey, sir,
I understand.
hang on. Don't use that language in here, even if somebody says something. Okay, or I'll ask you to be removed. And number 2, if you will bring it into a landing on what you want this board to do and not bring in any, we don't really need hearsay about conversation or her. If you'll just tell us, hey, this is what I'm asking you for, we'll get us all out of here.
If I could answer that, I talked with the sheriff here prior to this because I'm embarrassed to be here saying it. But I said, it's a quote. He said, well, you could say this, you could say that. I said, then I'd be lying, okay? And I don't begrudge him, okay? Like I said, everybody had a bad day. I don't know what he was doing.
Just don't use any vulgar language in public anymore.
I
There is
won't.
a state
I won't.
statute against it. It's an arrestable offense.
That's the end of it.
Thank you.
Okay. He said he was in Atlanta, Georgia, and he would call me back later that day, and we would meet the next day. And we did. We sat on the porch, we discussed problems, we discussed the BS, the program that the county has that they can assess the taxpayers, okay? He gave me the attorney's name, Mr. Andrews. I called him. He raised his voice at me when I answered some of the questions, and his comments were, well, maybe you shouldn't have bought in that area. I don't need a county officer to tell me how to spend my money. I need a county officer to answer my questions. When Bob and I talked, okay, we had a good discussion, but one of the things, and I'm sure all of you are aware of Blackjack Circle, and I've talked with many of people in there in the last year, okay? They're maybe not as fortunate as you and I, but they're hardworking and they're good people. I think the majority of them would be afraid to come here and speak because they've been looked the other way, okay? Like I said, I talked with Henry Bruton on the BSBU program. That opens up, I guess, January the 1st. Paperwork has to be back in by March 25th, I was told. Okay? Some of the things that Mr. Andrews gave me and Bob Cole gave me, Bob straightened me out on that, or Henry straightened me out on that. But it's just my thoughts and my belief that the people in there are being denied some of the services. I'm listening to all the money that the county's spending here, and I think a little of it should be spent there. Like I say, it's Santa Rosa County, it's our county. If you need to set up a sting, I'll give you my property to set it up. I just would like to see the county look at it and say, look, there is room for improvement. We can do it this way. You know, give me some options, and maybe the county will take over and do something.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you coming down here to speak with us today, and I think to address your two main concerns, just had a conversation with the sheriff this past week. He's been able to add a lot more manpower over the past year. He's been in office 2 years, and one of his main charges was to add a lot more folks to narcotic investigations. I feel wholeheartedly confident when I say I feel like if you call, request to talk with the sheriff's office, and tell them of concerns, that they will absolutely look into that. A lot of times it's not visible, and a lot of times it takes a long time, speaking from experience, but I wholeheartedly think they'll look into that. For the road issues and signage and lighting, Henry Bruton is absolutely the person to talk with the MSBU program. I think I can share some of your frustrations, and I'm not giving you lip service. I own property, formerly lived on property that's a private road, and to this day, I would love for the county to go in there and fix it. But you know what, the MSBU process, I've tried twice, and it takes people being willing to invest in their own community. So that's the avenue. I don't know if you've got any other specific concerns that we could address. That is the mechanism that Santa Rosa County has chosen to address, private roadways.
as far as the drug problems and the sheriffs, I don't think it should be me as a resident saying, hey, you got to go in there. That's what we have a sheriff department for.
Well, you got to call them and let them know, though.
I got to call them and let them know. No, I think the sheriff department, if they're properly doing their job, they'll know the areas where the drugs are.
I'm not going to get into that. Is there anything else that we could do for you as a board?
And the MSPU, like I said, I'm not sure I want to go that way, but how could I get a legitimate answer on the road coming in off of 399, that's McAdams? That's still part of Blackjack Estates.
What's your answer as far as the legitimate answer of what caliber?
Well, I'm told it's a private road. If it's a private road, how did the county let it get McAdams when the only thing that I've seen is an easement that's not legitimate? It's signed by a vice president in 2011, the Blackjack Association, and that was dissolved in 2001.
Roy, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Do you recall a conversation with this man? And I'm sure you would have.
I do, I think, and I believe that the developer or some of the residents on that portion of the road paid to have it paved.
Okay.
Everything I looked up on the county, on their maps and everything, shows that circle coming in off 399, going in, making the complete loop, and going back out as Blackjack Circle Estates. The other thing, I believe the association was formed by the Wells. I'm not positive, but the Wells. And if they went defunct in 2091, shouldn't they have had bylaws that were either honored by the county or the state? And when they went defunct, somebody should have said, well, we're going to assess or take over the estate or find the...
I'm not an attorney, but I'm going to say no. And none of this is in the realm of the county commission. Again, I own property right now on a private road similar to what you went with. I assure you that I've checked every avenue. And the county is not responsible for coming in and taking over private property. And I apologize if anything that was conveyed to you by anybody at the county was offensive or some of the things you went through. But you know, to tie in probably the conversation you had with Mr. Andrews, is that goes down to due diligence. And I don't mean that in any disrespectful way, but especially if you have a licensed realtor involved, that goes back to checking on what can I and can't I do and what responsibilities do I have until I purchase property. But if we had to take over private roadways in this county, we couldn't fund bringing all those up with probably 10 times the amount of figures that you heard today, because they're all over the county, especially in Commissioner Salter's district. I mean, we've got tons of dirt roads around and other things. So I don't know if there's anything further we would do to help, but I assure you, as far as legitimacy of answers, if you reach out to Mr. Andrews, our staff, Mr. Murray, or Mr. Furman with any specific questions, they'd be glad to help you. And if you reach out to them and maybe the answer is not always what you want, but if they refuse to work with you or anything else like that, please come back to us.
I don't think they would. I think that they, but they would be able maybe to dig into it and provide me the legal information on that road.
I think Mr. Andrews could probably have staff try to get you something, at least, within the realm of what we have access to.
We'll provide any information we can obtain in regard to it.
So if you'll just reach out to them and after the meeting, make sure they have their information and they'll get with you. So thank you so much for coming today, though.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Ma'am, I believe you wanted to speak. If you would, just provide your name and address for the record so that they have it. And thank you for coming.
I've done that, thank you. Okay.
If you would just let her know your name and address.
I'm sorry.
No
Gloria
problem.
Dobb, D-A-U-B, 1813 Navarre Sound Circle, Navarre, Florida. Initially, after a conversation with Mr. Peach, I came here to present a request for disapproval of a commercial driveway on Navarre Sound Circle. However, our attorney thinks that perhaps we should have added an extra statement on that particular form that you don't have this, that we all signed, because we don't want it to imply that we in any way approve of this adventure. So, I have given you a package of my own making, addressing the issues concerning Navarre Sound Circle and the implications of having a drive-through coffee shop on our street. On the last page, you've got a kindergarten map of the traffic flow that's going to happen when this place opens, if you allow it to happen. We're going to have more than 100 cars a day on our little teeny tiny residential street. We have old people on our street. We have handicapped people on our street. It's a nice, quiet place to live. Now, we know that the Deb's Coffee Shop lot, Lot A, Block 1, is zoned highway commercial. However, we initially had covenants for this subdivision that the 4 commercial lots on the front at 98 would only be office buildings. Those covenants are still in effect. There was a break, but they are still in effect. So, I'm here to protest the construction of any drive-through business on Navarre Sound Circle. Navarre Sound Circle is a residential street. There is currently a proposal for construction of a Deb's Coffee drive-through, not a coffee shop, a drive-through, on Lot A, Block 1, within Navarre by the Sound subdivision, at the corner of Navarre Sound Circle and Highway 98. The covenants for this lot allow an office building, not a drive-through business. Not only does Deb's Coffee drive-through propose to break the covenants, it also proposes for its traffic to enter and exit at Navarre Sound Circle. By putting their proposed driveway access on Navarre Sound Circle instead of on Highway 98, Deb's Coffee drive-through proposes to make Navarre Sound Circle an extension of their driveway. It is anticipated there will be not less than 100 cars per day involved with this business. I'm asking you to be proactive in preventing the ruination of our neighborhood.
Ms. Daub, is it Daub? Am I?
Yes, yes.
I just want to ask you so that I got clarification going forward with this. You said this is a proposal, and I apologize if I should have been familiar with this prior to now and I'm not. Is this going through the building department, the planning and zoning? Can somebody help me with this? Where are we at?
Yes, I'm sorry, I did forget to reference project 2018-V-094. That is not on your documents, but that is the original.
Could you just have Sean, I'm just wondering, is this something that's going to come before the board, or is this something that matches all the land development codes, and basically if we stop it, then we're going to get sued? Is it one of these cases here?
I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am, sorry. Sean Ward, Santa Rosa County Planning and Zoning Director. This case, the property is currently zoned HCD, Highway Commercial Development District, as well as all the other frontage roads that are within the subdivision on 98. So there are existing commercial development on those properties that also have driveway access onto Navarre Sound Circle there. The property went for a variance request back in September to the zoning board. They requested 3 variances. 2 of those variances were denied. 1 was approved. So right now, as of current, there is a site plan submitted to Santa Rosa County Planning and Zoning, as well as the building department for review on the coffee shop on that access there. Yes, sir.
Could you or Roy Andrews, I guess, speak upon, I just don't want to belabor, is there any action legally that this board, is this even coming before us at this point?
If it meets the requirements of the existing zoning, then the board cannot legitimately deny the development.
Would she have the opportunity through private counsel, if there are covenants or restrictions? I'm guessing that would be something they would need to file an injunction for. That would be something that would be enforceable,
again, in a civil action.
Yeah, and I'm not, so I don't know if you're.
Excuse me just a second.
Yes, ma'am.
He said coffee shop is a drive-through, not a coffee shop, it's a drive-through. And the businesses on 98 that are currently there are office businesses. They are not drive-through businesses.
So I'm thinking the course of action through the attorney's advised is, if you have a private counsel, it sounds like you mentioned that you do with talking with an attorney, would be to ask them to file an injunction with the court system to say, hey, this is basically like an HOA would. If somebody violates those, I mean, ultimately they have to get court order to get action. But it sounds like it's already went through the
It did, yes.
zoning board.
Right.
And the way our things, is this kind of like we're looking at land development code this coming year for some other issues? As right now, the way that the code is set up is that went to them, they're the final say-so on the variance. If it meets all the codes, I mean, legally, we cannot deny them because it meets the codes that are there right now. But now, if it's a violation of a covenant restriction, that would be something, absolutely get an attorney that knows, more about it than me sitting here as a commissioner, and then they could file for a petition for injunction in the court. But it doesn't sound like legally, there's anything that this board can do at this point.
Okay, these are little brick walls I keep running into. We intend to pursue that. I just thought maybe if there was some way you could delay it, it would help. However, different subject. I would like the county to start enforcing covenants and protecting the citizens who have covenants, rather than us having to go through civil legal action to, after the fact, correct an issue that should never have happened.
Yeah, and again, our attorney may chime in, but that is not something legally we can do. And so we have to, kind of like Mr. Peach talked about, and I don't know if there's a more eloquent way to put it when he says, that we govern all of our money, the 170,000+ citizens that we have. And there's just some things that the courts have already ruled on, and I know, God, I've been here 2 years and I'm still learning, so I don't expect folks that don't deal with it every week to know. But basically, when there's these set procedures, and we have them and they're documented and somebody follows them, if we say no then now we're liable and we're going to be expending tax dollars for saying no because they met all the check boxes. And on the covenants and restrictions, again, that's just not within the legal realm of what we're able to do. I mean, we've got HOAs all throughout this county and we can't get involved in that.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to be on the
It's not that
record.
we don't care or not compassionate. We're legally bound to some things.
Understand that. Yeah, that's okay. I just wanted to be on the record.
Yes, ma'am.
And we are engaging counsel, and we have fought this battle previously with the school that used to be there. Is no longer there.
Well, listen, you don't have to apologize. We appreciate you coming, and thank you so much. Yes, ma'am. Is there anybody else here today? Yes, sir. If you'll just come forward, if you'll state your name and address for the record there, Shannon will get it.
You guys must have heaters under that desk. My name is William Lake. I live at 3056 Saffronia Shores, Navarre, Florida. Currently, my water system is serviced by the Holly Navarre Water Board. It has developed a bad taste, and a bad smell. In August, Rob Williamson was defeated by over 60% of the voters. Within weeks, he was given a cushy job in a contract with the Holly Navarre Water Board, which no one knows about because it was done behind closed doors. The organization is chartered by the county. And from what I've been told by some of his supporters, he's been given an ironclad contract where even if the new board coming in votes to look at this contract and get rid of Mr. Williamson, which some people are saying they're going to do, that he will be given a large golden parachute, a large payout. This is malfeasance. This organization is chartered by the county, so therefore if malfeasance is involved, the county should be able to step in and rescind their charter. It's time to bring the Holly Navarre Water Board into the 21st century. It's time to make them accountable to the sunshine laws. It's time to let the sunshine in. And something needs to be done about this. They need to be investigated. And the people of Navarre, who are the voters, this water board services thousands and thousands of homes in the area, and these people voted to say no to Rob Williamson, that this contract needs to be looked at, and the minutes, any texting that went on, any issues that went on behind his supporters on the Hollywood-Navarre board and him should be brought out into public. And if there is malfeasance involved, they should also bring in the state prosecutor. And I'm asking the county to step up to the plate and defend the voters of southern Santa Rosa County and take a look at this, and if necessary, rescind their charter. It's a 99-year sweetheart charter that you guys gave them that is just absolutely beyond any comprehension. It has nothing like they have over at the ECUA or any other water board. It's a sweetheart contract, and it needs to have serious consideration. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Yes, sir. I'm going to let Roy address this because I know I've had conversations about Pace Water Board and different issues right after I got elected, and I think he'll be the man to take this.
Well, there is an ordinance and a resolution in regard to a franchise for Hollywood water system. There is some state statutory exemptions for customer-owned water and sewer systems, which this board meets that definition. There is the ability, and the county in the past has exercised some regulatory ability over water and sewer systems. That ordinance was repealed several years ago. It may be something that the county would want to look into, but we have some pretty serious statutory limitations on what we can do.
Why isn't the election put on the county ballot? Why? I mean, people get to vote by proxy. My aunt is dead, but she has a proxy vote for the Hollywood.
There was litigation between Santa Rosa County and the Hollywood-Navarre water system in years past. There was actually a specific ordinance that was passed that outlawed proxy voting. The circuit court determined that the Hollywood-Navarre water system, as a not-for-profit corporation that meets that statutory requirement, was exempt from county regulation. It was appealed to the First District Court of Appeal, and the circuit court decision was upheld.
All right, but they're a nonprofit, and no one on the board of a nonprofit is supposed to be able to profit from being on that board. However, when political supporters put their man as the CEO of it, where does the quid pro quo come in? I mean, now, because his supporters have put him as the CEO of the water board, and some of them are contractors, do they have the right by going, hey, Rob, we put you on the board. How about hiring my son for the summer or my daughter for the summer? Hey, my friend's got a problem with a contract with the water board. Come on, Rob, you can fix it. This stinks to high heaven. This whole thing stinks.
I think I've set forth the limitations on the ability of the county to regulate it.
Well, we'll see. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming. Anybody else in the public? All right. Seeing none, we're going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you.